And so after that point, we got into this DeLorean, which he turned into a time machine of all things. Now, how the hell he got that working, I have no idea. Something about this thing called a flux capacitor, whatever that is. But anyway, we went back in time, and then I had to do this whole thing, getting in fights with this guy called Biff from my high school. And man, it was just a whole different type of weekend. I couldn't even tell you how crazy it was. So strange.
Yeah, Biff sounds like a real tool.
Man, that guy. I wish I could go find him today, and he'd probably be an old man right now. But I wish I could go find him today and have some words with him.
Yeah, I'll help you out there. Just let me know. Give me the heads up.
Yeah, man, for sure. Biff.
Nobody likes Biff. Come on, let's be real. Corbin Dallas with a 25 months Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much, man. It says time flies. Always good to have you around. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Yeah, 25 months. That's definitely a bit of time. Definitely a bit of time.
It is. Jay Shuff with 500 flux capacitor bits as well. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate those, dude.
Very nice. Thank you very much, guys. He also subs as well on the 16 month of tier 1. Thank you so much. And DMC on a tier 1 for 11 months. Thank you so much, guys.
Oh, he's almost a year. Almost a year. Yeah.
Yeah. But over the 9-month pregnancy term, so he's already had a top clack baby.
He's got a top clack baby.
Or whatever you always say, Jay. That it's always a little creepy, but we go with it anyways.
He's almost at the year mark now. Yeah.
Yep. So when should we do the pre-stream mail call? You think we should do it earlier or should we do it later?
We should give it a couple of minutes or so and then roll into the mail call and do it early again. So for you guys that were watching last week, just to give you a reminder, and for those of you guys that weren't watching, we're going to move the mail call from doing it after the intro to this segment where we kind of do the pre-show and the build-up and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Yep, we're trying to streamline and polish up the show a little bit more because timelines have been kind of strange on Top Clack lately. We've been going a little too far in a lot of our episodes, and not everyone has time to sit down and watch a 3-hour live stream or a 3.5-hour VOD. So we're really trying to tune the show down a little bit to where we can try to hit a hard limit of about 2 hours. That's not including the pre-show. That's our official start time of 6 p.m. Pacific. So really trying to keep us down to a 2-hour show for you guys, so it's not quite as imposing. And then that kind of frees us up for time to do other things as well.
Such as sleep, because it's like 2 a.m. for me. Yeah.
Poor Jay kind of has to really take the bullet every single week on this show.
Yeah. We should just for once do a show at the EU time and force you to get up at silly o'clock. That's what we should do.
Okay, I'll do it. Sure. No problem.
Big shout out to Ramai as well for 11 months worth of Twitch Prime subs. Said, only here to sub, I'm going to blame Petrov. That sounds like standard behaviour, just blaming Petrov. It's a thing in general.
Thank you very much. Always blame Petrov.
Super User 4 as well says they've subscribed for 13 months there, so thank you very much for that. And Looped Helio subscribed for 7 months and said Pog. So Pog. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Shout out to Looped Helios for always being way too early for the show. I love when I open Streamlabs an hour before we go live, and there's like a Looped Helios has like some kind of message that just pops up in the channel.
Yeah. I was telling you before the show, we have this weird thing for the Sunday build streams that I do, where even 4 hours before the stream, someone will come along and go first, and that's just because they know that I set up about 3-4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon is when I set up my cameras and Streamlabs and everything else and get it ready for my stream. So I think people have kind of realised that, so they're just posting to chat at that point to try and get first. It's very strange. It's very strange.
I love it. I also love Jay Shuff gifting 5 tier 1 subs to people. Thank you so much, man. Very kind of you.
Thank you.
Up to 80 in this channel. That's a lot of gifted subs.
80. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Jay Shuff. Really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it.
Love that. T-Zark says, wait, no, that wasn't T-Zark. It said 2021, right? Oh, yeah, he did, yeah. So it's actually 2021. Or it's the 21st. In here, in America, where I am right now, it's still the 20th. So that's what we're going with, because I'm the one that does the stream titles, because I'm the one that actually does the stream. So, bam!
Yeah, so
you're on American time.
video chat with Quakems, and he's the guy that's streaming. But yeah, it is the 21st here, so I'm in the future and Brian is in the past. That's what you need to take from this guy.
The exact date doesn't really matter anyways. It's fine. It's just a rough approximation. It's this week's episode of this show. Let's just go with that.
Luna Sammer says, can Jay get Upas to lick my JO2? Probably not. That's probably not going to happen. I'm really sorry, but I don't think that's something that Upas is going to do.
Yeah, is like this still like a big thing in the community, licking things? I feel like I thought that came and went already. Are we back to that now?
It seems to have gone. It seems to have looped.
Full circle.
It's now back to it.
All right. Yay.
Anyway, should we jump into a mail call before it hits the hour?
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the things that we've received.
Go on then, dude. You go first. What have you got this week?
All right, mine's really quick. I only actually received one thing this week. I got some LiPo batteries here. Oops, as I drop one.
Nice.
Yeah, I got some LiPo batteries. So the idea here, if some of you longtime Top Clack viewers might have remembered, I have this thing called the Couch Surfer. And this is admittedly kind of a novelty idea, but it's kind of fun as well. So the idea here is that it's a a custom cut and finished piece of wood, and then it has an inlay here for a 60% PCB and a detachable steel plate by the looks of it. So pretty simple stuff there. There's cutouts for everything. Plates universal. So just needed a Bluetooth PCB, which I actually have had for a couple months now. I have that what is it called? BIOI. BI606 or something like that. LA, yeah. It's the Bluetooth PCB that was offered in the G60 group I run. They did another run of it, and it was pretty inexpensive, so I picked one up. It also has an attached mouse pad there. Love that. So now I actually have the PCB, and now I have batteries to power the PCB. I have a 1200 milliamp and a 2000 milliamp. I wasn't sure what I needed, so I just kind of bought both because they were fairly inexpensive. So
why not? Yeah.
Yep. Use one for another project if I need to. So that's cool. That'll actually come alive. Of course, I'll build stream that. I have no idea what switches I'm going to put in that, but it's going to be a hilarious build stream because I don't even know how I'm going to fit it on my desk to build it. So that's coming in the near future.
I'm insanely jealous of that board. I think it looks great. If they ever come back, I will definitely be picking one of those up.
Yeah, certainly. All right, what about you, Jay? What did you get over the last
I got a few things. Firstly, big shout out to Egler from the International Kit, because he sent me the International Kit for GMK Laser. So whilst I don't use laser very often, I do have it on my polycarbonate canoe, and I was missing some of the international keys, especially the lovely bright pink ISO enter, which you can see just there at the bottom. So he sorted me out with that kit. So thank you very much to Egler. Thank you, dude. As well as that, I also got two PCBs from Hiney. So these are in this box, a H88 and a H87A as well. So one of each. One is for the next board I'm going to talk about. Another one is for an upcoming project, which should be around probably midsummer. The next thing I got, which is a rather heavy box, which I haven't even opened as yet. And some of you might recognize this logo. Is my...
Never in my life have I seen that, Jay. We all have no idea what that is. Please educate us.
That's my Jane CE, which will be built on stream on Sunday. Now, I haven't opened it. I haven't looked at it. I'm going to take you guys through the unboxing process with me. So I'll see the board for the first time as you guys see it on Sunday, which is pretty interesting, pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward for that. CE. So I think I should have both different types of weight in there. When I was speaking to Sam about when I bought the board, I should have both different types of weight in there, and I should have a couple of PCBs and plates as well. So plus the Hiney PCB, which is probably the one I'm going to build with on Sunday. And then the final thing that I got this week is this, which is a vintage board with Cherry MX blacks in, and it's in the Yugoslav ISO layout. So
wow!
For those, yeah.
Can we see those caps a little bit closer? That's gorgeous.
Yeah. So really interested to play around with these caps and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Love
and I think that was it. I think that was everything I got.
Nice. All right. Well, without further ado, then we can officially start the show. Only 1 minute late. We're getting better at the timing thing, guys. We're doing it.
1 minute late. 1 minute late, yes.
We're doing it.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, folks. I hope you're having a great day. Today is Top Clack Day, and we are here to talk about some keyboards, funnily enough. I'm here with Brian, my wonderful co-host today. Brian, how the hell are you doing, good sir?
Fantastic. Always love Thursdays. Probably my favorite day of the week because I sure do love doing this show. And,
nice.
Yeah. It's I can't complain. Life is going all right at the moment.
You do seem really chipper today, which is really, really good.
I'm a bit more lively than usual. Yeah. I won't get into details, but yeah, I was struggling with some things for a bit, and now I'm struggling with fewer things, which is nice. That's all I'll say.
Good. I am glad that you are feeling good. So, yeah. Congratulations and well done and all of those good things, and it's great to see you so lively. Yeah. A couple of quick announcements. I think the first one's up from you, Mr. Brian Quakums.
Yeah. So behind the keyboard was supposed to happen last week. Well, it was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
There were a lot of technical issues. We couldn't get a stable connection, so we had to cancel it that day. Then we rescheduled for the week after, which was last Friday. And I said, this is happening today, barring any kind of emergencies. And guess what? There was a medical emergency. My guest had to go to the urgent care. If you're unfamiliar with what urgent care is, I don't know if that's a thing everywhere in the world, but at least in America, it's kind of like the middle ground between like an emergency room and your typical doctor's office visit. So it's maybe not necessarily super duper serious, but it's somewhat of an emergency still. So.
And how is your guest doing? Is he better? Is he doing all right now?
I talked to him just the other day, and he said does seem to be doing better now. I think he had strep, I believe is okay. What the consensus was, but I didn't really pry him for details too much. But we'll give him a hard time when he's on the show. No big deal. It'll be all in good fun. But yes, he does seem totally fine now. So tomorrow we're gonna give this a go once again, barring any medical emergencies. Behind the Keyboard should be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific. So make sure to come in for that. It's going to be great. My guest is a wonderful person, and we're going to have a great time and hopefully get a lot of beneficial information for everyone.
Excellent. I am definitely interested in watching that, and I will try and be up live to watch it as well because it's going to be a good show. I'm looking forward to that. The other bit of announcements that we have as well involves switchkeys.au, who is in chat right now. For those of and he just subscribed for 4 months.
I was about to say really coincidental here.
Yeah. But just wanted to say big shout out to SwitchKeys. So for those that you don't remember, SwitchKeys a few weeks ago did the CFA group buy for the mats, so the County Fire Authority desk mats designed by Nathan Alphaman, which was a black desk mat with red border, and then it had a single tree in the middle to support all of the wildfire and the fire authorities in Australia. And the numbers have come in, and they raised over $4,000 through selling that desk mat. So I am really proud to say that I was part of being able to help that out. So well done to switchkeys.au. Well done to everyone who bought one of those desk mats. I believe they'll be going into production as soon as things are better with China, and we'll get them out as soon as they come in, because I'm really excited to see those go out to people. And it was awesome news that I got just before the show as well. So thank you very much to Steph for arranging that, and hopefully that money will go to good use. So thanks very much, guys, and well done on raising a great amount of money.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I love seeing that, and I really love the recent push in our community to start to support all these charitable organizations, because we've been seeing so much of it lately, and it's been going so well, and it gets the word out there so well. You've been raising so much money. I mean, just look at the JO1 raffle that happened just last month or whatever. That was wild.
It was huge.
So wild.
Yeah, and
huge. We've been seeing so much success with these, and it's a real pleasure to see. I love it, and I really do hope that as a community we keep it up.
Yeah, it is great to see. And of course, there was Pretty in Pink and all of the other bits and pieces we're doing. There's the Rama cap and everything else that was done for CFA as well.
Yeah,
so
GMK Coral,
huge things. Yeah,
so many great projects lately that have been really putting in the effort for charity, and it's nice to see. I feel like it makes our community as a whole way more wholesome. And
absolutely,
I like that a lot. I like that. makes me happy to be a part of this community, because, as we all know, sometimes we might not be very happy to be part of this community.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts. It's all good. It's all good.
Yep, absolutely. So that's going to end our announcements for today. Let's jump right into our news doc and get started because we have a lot of really interesting topics today, particularly keyboard related. Big surprise there. A lot of keyboard kits going up recently. So let me just swap over here and let's get started on this. So starting us off this week is going to be a new keyboard from KBDfans called the Bella, which is a 75% keyboard. Now, unfortunately, there is no real thread available for this, so we don't really have very much info. All we really have are some pictures, which is kind of unfortunate, but there are some good renders in here, and we can kind of extrapolate a lot of things about the keyboard based on these pictures. So, just a couple things that we've kind of noticed so far. If we go down to this exploded view here, you kind of get a decent amount of information. Looks like it is going to be a top-mounted system, which is nice. You have an external brass weight down here that looks very, very, very reminiscent of something like the Polaris or the KBD 8X Mark II. You have a brass plate, and what I think is the most interesting thing is this little kind of piece of material here that sits in the back of the keyboard. Now, this is actually a key switch opener, which I thought was really kind of cute and playful. I had never really thought about having your tools as part of your keyboard before. And you know, while certainly it may not be for everyone, I think it's kind of a fun approach to a new feature set on boards that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least. I'm not sure if it's something I appreciate or not. I kind of like if I kind of dislike having accent pieces like that in certain boards that we've seen. However, on this particular thing, it's got more function. There's it's not just a form thing. There's function behind it as well, being a switch opener. So I kind of can see the use for that, and I think for some people it'll become very useful. But how many times do you need a switch opener unless you're building keyboards every week after you've built your keyboard? I imagine for the vast majority of the community, once you've built the keyboard, you kind of don't need to open your switches. So
yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I can't decide how I feel about it. I think it's kind of nice and it's kind of cool, and maybe it will benefit a lot of people. The mounting system for it's quite cool though. One of the basically you screw a magnet onto the case, and then the magnet's got a cover that goes over the screw, and then the switch opener clips onto the magnet and is held in place magnetically, which I do like. That's a very good innovation. So
yeah, definitely. And it looks like from these pictures at least there might be a couple options for them. So if you noticed on some of these pictures, sorry, I gotta open these in new tabs. This one, for example, this one actually just has the KBDfans K logo. Very simple, pretty tasteful, not too bad. However, on some of the other ones, you'll notice there's actually a different design entirely. This looks like a little, I don't know. I'm assuming this is supposed to be a cat, maybe a dog, some kind of animal and or pet. But it's kind of fun and playful. I don't like it as much. I feel like it's maybe a little too playful at that point, but I like the idea that you might be able to have multiple options for this. And again, like you mentioned, how many times do you need a key switch opener, you know, after you've already built the board, perhaps? Maybe not so much, but I still like the idea of just having tools so readily available as part of the board, because it doesn't really detract with anything either. It's still like a little badge, it's a little logo, it's fine. Like, it might have been there either way. Now it's also, you know, something functional for you.
Sure. Yeah. In other news on this board, some good points is USB-C. We can see that clearly from the design. From a layout perspective, one of the interesting things is whilst it's 75%, it only goes up to F11, which is quite interesting. There is no F12 key, and that's because they've moved over the F1 key from the escape key to make space for the little badge as well. So interesting on that, and it also has the standard TKL kind of staggered to the top row too. So there's gaps between each set of F keys rather than having all as one straight bar across the top, which I do prefer. I think that looks much nicer than having, say, for example, the Singer, where it's just the same as the first row, the num row. I'm not a big fan of that, but this does look kind of interesting from that perspective.
Yeah, so just a slight mistake there. It actually does go up to F12. You have all 12 of your F keys there, but in the renders, they render two F11s. Which is
right. Okay, I didn't catch that. Yeah, I just saw the F11. I didn't count them. But yeah,
no worries. Yeah, definitely at a glance, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, no, thanks for catching that, guys. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. So what do you think about the layout as a whole, though? I kind of like the exploded layout on 75%. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I do kind of like this layout. I kind of like. I think this is really interesting actually because it moves it over on the bottom row quite a lot from the arrow keys perspective. I do like that. I think that'll work quite well. I like the bottom row that's in these renders. The two 1.5s, the 70 space, the arrow keys here. I think that works really nicely. It's quite nice. I kind of like the on the right hand column as well, where you've not got the extra key at the bottom that comes up to the arrow keys. I kind of like that's missing. Gives it another blocker, a bit more space there. I feel that mirrors the space for the cat or the KBDfans logo, the Switch opener, quite nicely. So yeah, I think it looks all right.
Yeah. So something kind of interesting about this board is when I first saw it, particularly the bottom, and obviously we talked a little bit about this before the show, but when you take a look at the bottom, who do you think might have designed this board?
So my first view on this particular board was, AIO3 has done a 75%. But when we were talking, Brian, I think one of the things that you let me know was that this actually isn't an AIO3 board.
Yeah, so recently we've been seeing AIO3, who is a popular designer in the community, if you're not aware. He's been working a lot with KBDfans recently, actually, and he helped them redo their KBD 8X, which is their TKL, and because of that, they put out the Mark II, which is a much more attractive board than the previous version, if I do say so myself. He also put out the Polaris, which was a similarly designed, very value-oriented gasket mount 60% that just looked incredible, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Anyways, he has a very particular design language, and I feel like this board actually does use some of his design language, but it doesn't look quite as polished, doesn't look quite as refined. But it's kind of interesting. So I did reach out to him before the show, and he did clarify that he is not the designer of this board. He did not help KBDfans with this board at all. So it's kind of interesting. So maybe this is actually an in-house KBDfans design where they are taking a lot of his design language and just kind of putting it in the board. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So one of the things that made the Polaris and the KBD 8X so successful is AIO3 actually took very little, if not zero, profit on those boards, and that's why we were partially able to achieve such a low price point. So that leads me to believe that this board could also be very, very inexpensive, particularly if it doesn't include a third-party designer like the previous two do, and this is just maybe an in-house KBDfans board. So I don't know, is this the follow-up to the KBD 75? Is this a new project entirely? Is this... I don't really know what to think about this, to be honest with you.
I think we need more details. We just need to wait and see how that comes out. I think, as you said, it does feel very unrefined when compared to AIO3's designs. The side profile, especially, the big thing that jumps out and makes it look like an AIO3 board is that weight design and kind of how that's implemented into the base of the keyboard. But yeah, I think it's just going to have to be a wait and see, especially in terms of the price. KBDfans have been ramping up the quality and keeping the prices low over the past couple of years. We've both been impressed with some of their boards from 2018 onwards, and if this hits that kind of similar sort of price point to some of the other boards they've got available, then I think this will be a big seller. You know, a lot of people are in the queue for a KBD 67 Mark II at the minute. I think there's 2,500 people in that queue right now.
That's
so there's a lot of people trying to buy KBDfans boards.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, we've seen like the price points from the 8X Mark II and the Polaris that, you know, they can really achieve very inexpensive price points while still keeping, you know, quality decent and functionality quite high. So I think the Polaris started at only about $250 US, which was, you know, very inexpensive compared to competing 60% at the time. And, you know, the 8X Mark II was even more incredible in my eyes, because that launched at, I think, it was either 250 or 280, I think, got you a base model kit. So to hit that sub 300 mark for a custom TKL is wild, because, you know, we look at things like TGR, we look at Keycult, you know, we look at all those high-end TKL manufacturers, and they're not putting out boards that are under $300. You know, nobody else is doing that. All custom TKLs are pretty much $400, $500, like, or minimum, way more. And it's interesting to be able to get those really low price points on products that, you know, maybe some people won't call the 8X Mark II a high-end premium TKL in the same range as, you know, a Keycult or a TGR, for example. But you got to remember, at the end of the day, a lot of the differences might not be as huge as you think. There might be a lot of, negligible difference, all things considered. And I've talked with Riot on the Bay before of Key Cult, and he totally agrees too. Like, a Key Cult board, you might get a little bit more quality, you might get a little, better customer service, or this or that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily justify the price tag over something like the 8X Mark II. And I feel like this is going to be a similar vein with 75%. I feel like we could see this as low as $250.
It's a big call. We shall have to see. I wouldn't want to guess it'd be that low, but yeah, I think it'd be great to see a low price, option in this size. And perhaps you're right. Perhaps this is going to be the replacement for the vastly popular KBD 75, because that was one of my first boards in the hobby, or very early on. I know they've had a second revision of that, and it's always been popular. So perhaps this is the future of that line of KBDfans boards.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to move on. Not a whole lot of info on this board aside from just the pictures. So hopefully we get a thread in the near future, a true interest check thread, or some kind of pre-order thread to where we can actually get some more info on this, because I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. Speaking of things I want to learn more about, we have up next the Hiney TKL1. Do you want to run us through some specs on this one?
Yeah. For starters, I do want to say that I'm going to guess that name is not finalized. I would not be at all surprised if he actually has a name in mind, or does apply a name to it once it does go into the group buy phase. But for now, it's the Hiney TKL1.
I think that naming's fine.
I really hope he doesn't stick with that, but hey, it's Hiney. You never really know what's going to happen. Which is part of the charm, part of the fun, I suppose.
With Hiney, that could be named anything. Fine. It wouldn't surprise me.
Exactly. Anyways, back to some of these specs. So it's going to use a 6-degree typing angle, pretty standard there. It's going to use the same plate mounting points as the TGR Jane and the OTD Koala. Both very, very, very iconic and popular TKLs that people kind of just assume are the pinnacle of custom TKLs for the most part. So nice to see the same mounting points there. It's going to be using an H87AC PCB, which of course is Hiney Bush's trademark PCB. And that one's going to have the USB-C on it as well. So very nice there. And it's going to be burger mount, which for the uninitiated that might not be aware, that's effectively just top mount with an O-ring thrown in somewhere. Nothing too fancy, but it is tried and true. Everyone loves top mount. No one really complains about it, so you can't really complain too much there. So what do you think about the aesthetic of this board? Because I know I've ranted a lot in the recent months of Talk Clack about how I'm just so sick of seeing TKLs that are just rehashed over and over again. We get a lot of the same designs, the same aesthetics, and I often wonder if it's worth it. But here, I think there's a few interesting but small design choices that I think kind of push this into a more unique category.
There is. I mean, the first thing you do when you glance at it, you see it's a TKL. And that doesn't seem surprising, and everyone knows what a TKL looks like, and that's fine. The common things that we see is it's got finger grips under the side, so you can lift the board up and move it around easily. It's got kind of a little wedgy bit at the front that kind of keeps it flat to the table before you get to those finger grips. That's all stuff that we see on a lot of TKLs. But as you said, Brian, there's two things that really, really elevate this. And the picture of the silver board you're showing at the minute, or light gold, I think it was actually, it looks silver on my screen. But there's two things that you can see really clearly in this picture, that tiny details that make a huge, huge difference to how you perceive the board. The first one I'm going to call out is the back corner. And right there in the back corner, you can see that there's actually a curve to the rear of the board, but very similar to HBCP. It was one of the nicest features on that board. Hiney, I still want one if you ever have any spares. It's a really, really nice design. It adds a bit of a timeless quality almost to the board, I'd say. I think it looks really smooth. It looks really nice. It's great visually, and it really breaks up those square angles that a standard TKL has with all of the different switch cutouts and everything else. TKLs are very square in terms of 90-degree angles, and I know that they're filleted in the corners, but 90-degree angles everywhere, and having that one curve at the back just really, really offsets that nicely. The second innovation, which I think is really, really nice and adds a huge amount to the front design as you look when you're typing on the board, is this thin little lip that runs right the way across the front of the edge of the board. Now, we have seen those on other boards. The Juby from Pona has one that's maybe 5 millimeters across the edge of the board, and it's nice and thick, and you can physically see it. There's a ton of other boards that do it as well. Sorry if I don't talk about your board in relation to that, and you've designed one with it. But Hiney's gone for this kind of 1 or 2 millimeters kind of flat edge just across there, and that looks absolutely stunning. How that sets off the front of the board, I'm really impressed with. I think it looks really, really great. Really great.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. I spent about an hour before the stream today just looking at this interest check thread because I was trying to find out why I like this board so much when it really, like, in the grand scheme of things, isn't terribly different from a lot of TKLs that we've seen already. And
sure.
All I can really say is I think those little design choices that Hiney makes, so all those little things, they really do start to add up, and you really do kind of get... He keeps this elegant, simple, clean aesthetic, but he has his own flair on it, but he doesn't shove it down your throat. And I think that's perfect. That rounded corner, like the HBCP, I thought it looked wonderful there. I think it looks wonderful here. That little chamfer, that little lip you're talking about on the front there, it speaks volumes, and it's so small, but it really does speak volumes.
It's a huge difference, yeah. As well as that, the other things that are like the small details are the hiney on the inside of the case. Really nice touch there. Very reminiscent of how Keycap put their number 2 and everything else in the bottom corner on the internals of the board. I really like that. It's a nice little touch. And there's something interesting that going on with the weight as well that you told me about before the stream. Now, I had read this in the interest check, but I didn't know what the reason for it was. But you have a little bit more information on it, I believe.
Yeah, so the weight system kind of confused me at first, but I did talk to him a little bit before the show, and he clarified it for me. So it's quite simple. The way it works is it's a 2-piece weight, and from the inside here, like in this picture, you can only see the brass part of the 2-piece weight. And right there, it just goes right in there. And on the outside, it's actually a larger stainless steel part, which I appreciate a lot. I'm a big fan of steel weights. I always prefer them over brass. I much prefer the aesthetic, just a personal preference. But I do like seeing that. But the idea here is that the brass is actually going to add a specific acoustic property to the inside that you're going to be able to hear when you're typing. That's the actual design feature of that, which I thought was kind of interesting. So obviously, if you have steel on the inside, it might sound different and might not give the desired effect there. Steel really likes to reflect and accentuate pings and higher pitch sounds, whereas brass a little bit more tame. It helps kind of absorb and deepen just a little bit more compared to the steel. So because of that, you're going to get a little bit different of a sound profile on the inside, but you're still going to get that nice, sexy outer appearance of the steel weight. So kind of a fun idea. It's very simple, but I'm kind of curious to see what it's going to actually accomplish, because it could be kind of a fun little feature for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree. I think this board is definitely on my want list going forwards. I'm not usually a TKL fan, but just because of all the little tiny design details that have gone into this, the thought, the care, the attention to detail, this is what makes me want something like this. Hiney hitting a home run on this one, I think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. So he does have what might be upwards of a 40-unit cap, and it might be sort of a closed and or private group buy or raffle, depending on how you want to look at it. Depending on interest and what he wants to do, he might open it up to more people, but we'll have to wait and see. A couple things to note here. These are a couple of the colors that he wants to try out, but are no means the only colors available. He's still deciding on a lot of information in the interest check, of course, but he does want to kind of try out this... I don't know. I don't know what you'd call this. I guess he calls it a very light gold. Okay, I guess I'm inclined to agree. I think it looks pretty good, and then he also has this purple that looks pretty darn nice. And he also adds, these are RAL colors, by the way. He adds color references in the state of these little balls next to the render of the keyboard. I love seeing that. I wish more people would do that. That gives a really kind of clear comparison to how he's actually hitting the RAL color there. Love seeing that. Oh, also, plate materials. So FR4,
oh, yeah.
I don't know if he actually added this to the thread yet. I didn't look, because I think he might have updated it since I last talked to him. So I asked him a bunch of questions. But as far as the plate is concerned, he said FR4 is pretty much what he's aiming for, but he also likes brass. So I would guess that both of those materials are going to be part of this run. As far as anything else, anything's up in the air. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I want to pick one of these up if I were part of the closed run, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely like to get one. It's really, really nice. I am a huge fan of this board already, and he's just about to get a prototype, so
Yeah,
it's great.
This board does such a good job of fitting in like that kind of typical but classic, timeless, elegant TKL with a lot of new but minor design choices that I think really kind of push this into a category of its own, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. So look out for that. Let's move on to our next topic. Another interest check here. This is the Eclipse, which is what they're calling a quote-unquote TKL 60% keyboard. As we can tell from this first picture, it's effectively a TKL without the F row entirely. So 60% plus nav cluster plus arrows. Pretty darn simple in terms of the layout there. A couple of quick specs. It's going to have a 7-degree angle. It's going to use a seamless design that we'll show here in just a moment. And there's not really any specs on the plate or PCB, but we will know that it has a centered USB port, and if the renders are due to be believed, we have a brass plate option here, and down here we have a polycarbonate plate option, so BAM would not be surprised to see either of those. We can also see there's going to be an internal weight, and in this exploded view we can see how the gasket mount system is going to work, which is what I'm going to call more a la key cult, which is kind of just these strips under and above the plate there. So you do get isolation there in a pretty simple style. How do you feel about the looks of this one, Jay?
I feel it. So first of all, I kind of like some of the design features on this board. I kind of like the way they've got the internal weight and it's not visible externally. I kind of like that. It's understated. It's there to add some heft to the board. It's just something that you know about. It's very understated. I like the fact that it's seamless design. That's really interesting to me as well. I'm definitely a big fan of that kind of design aesthetic. In terms of the actual looks of the board, it feels like it's too long and too narrow, if that makes sense. It's kind of like too long but too narrow on its height, because I'm not used to seeing a board that's this wide without having that kind of function row up at the top. So I don't know if that's just me that needs some time to get used to it. I've only just looked at this just before the stream today. I hadn't looked at it prior to that, so I haven't had time to let that get into the back of my head and let me think about whether I like it or not. But it just feels like there's something missing whenever I look at the board. The render with the GMK set on at the end, it just feels like there's something missing from that top end of the board. It feels very long and thin, and I'm not sure I can get past that at the minute in my head.
That's fair. To me, the aesthetic is kind of reminiscent, for the layout at least, let me clarify, of the candy bar from TKC. So it kind of has the same effect where it's seemingly very long, but obviously not very, I don't know, deep, I guess, at that axis.
Yeah.
So it does look a little goofy because of that, but I don't personally find it too bad. I think the aesthetic of the case is fine. Seamless design is nice. The bezels, I think, are nice. I think the indicators are well placed. I kind of like this bottom aesthetic, where he says it's seamless, and obviously it kind of is, but the bottom actually sticks out. I don't know, probably 1.5, maybe 2 millimeters tops there on the bottom. And I think that's kind of a nice kind of floating effect. I don't know how much you would really see that using a desk mat, because it might sink in too far to really get that aesthetic. But I think, without a desk mat, that could elevate the looks just a little bit nicer there.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's fine. I like the simplicity of it. It's a tried and true isolation mount system now. We've seen that come and go. No problems there. Seamless design. People generally like that. I think it's fine. It's not that interesting of a board, but I don't really have any qualms about it either, to be totally honest. So.
No, I think in terms of like an actual group buy, this will do really well for itself. It's got good enough aesthetics and good enough looks to do quite well. So I agree. I think this will do just fine.
I'm actually kind of curious. Just a very quick verbal poll in chat. How do you guys feel about this layout? Does this make more sense to you than something like a standard 65%? You're getting about the same amount of keys. You're getting about the same functionality. How do you guys feel about this layout? 60% plus navigation cluster and arrows there. 65%, maybe way better, you guys think? I'm curious to know what you guys feel.
Yeah, interested.
Don't know if it makes more sense, but I like it personally. Okay. You want
cool.
it. Jace says he wants it in win keyless. Totally fair. I'd love to see this.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see this rendered in win keyless. That'd be kind of fun.
I think one of the things that I I'm so used to seeing now, we don't see on this board, is a 7U bottom row, and the only render with keycaps on has that 6.25U bottom row.
Presumably, you could do 7U bottom row with no real issues here. I mean,
well, I mean, it would fit. We
know
could absolutely get it to fit. I think maybe that's part of what's messing with my head a little bit. I'm so used to seeing renders have that 7U bottom row now. So yeah, we'll see.
It does look a little funky because of that, but I mean, presumably you would be able to do that because it's that main area is still a standard 60%. You should have lots of different options there on that. All right, just go full TKL, says Mangarita. Starstone says F-rowless TKL are nice, cool. Mex on Deck says seems needlessly long. Yep, that was kind of Jay's idea as well.
Yeah, it just feels long. It feels lengthy. Yeah.
Kiryu saying no because 65% gives more mouse room. Iwene also more of a fan of 65%. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I feel like you'd get the exact same functionality out of a 65%. So if you're doing this layout, the only reason you do it is for the aesthetic. And I think it's kind of polarizing. Either it looks a little funky because it's effectively a TKL without an F-row, and because of that, it's going to be that long. And yeah, I kind of agree with what people like Mr. Petrov are saying right now. It's an inefficient use of mouse real estate. I agree. As a gamer, I swing my mouse around a lot, and even boards as sized as well as TKLs or this particular length kind of screw me up, and I wind up hitting my thumb and or mouse on the keyboard a lot in first-person shooter games. So I really appreciate the extra mouse space that 65% provides, and that's going to be my final verdict on this as well. If you like the layout, if you like the look of the layout, it could be for you. Otherwise, 65% I think makes way too much sense over this.
I would broadly agree with that. The only thing I would say is I don't dislike the layout itself. I just feel like the board feels too long. I think if you had some other visible kind of portion on the top board to kind of bring the dimensions back, it would work quite well. So for example, if I did something in the J series like this with this kind of layout and then put the pen rail in there instead of the F-row, I think that would maybe change my opinions on the board a little bit. So yeah.
Sure.
Melodet, yeah, says LOL, like a pen rail. Yeah, exactly. You knew where I was going with that instantly because you know how much I love a pen rail. I actually use my JO1 now, and I do love it.
All right, so we'll have to wait and get more information on that once the group buy opens up, should it ever. Let's move on to a project that I assume you know quite a bit about. This is the interest check for the Lodestone. And boy, is this a neat-looking board for about 800,000 reasons. But I know that you don't like to talk about your projects on the show. I know that.
Yeah, but I feel like it makes it seem like I'm shilling my stuff, and I really don't want to use the show for that.
You can say as little as you want about this because I'm just going to run over a couple specs here, and then at the very least, I can talk about how I feel about it.
Yeah, go on. You run over some specs. You go give your feelings, and I'll give you kind of like I won't try and influence anyone. I will just give some straight thoughts about the design process, something like that. Yeah, let's do that.
Which is totally fair. So just a quick preface on why we're talking about it like this. So obviously, as you can see, this is a topic that is posted by Jay, who you are viewing on your screen right now. And this is not a top Clack project. So because of that reason, he doesn't want to feel like he's promoting it. Some people could get upset at that. So just know that Jay has Jay has the honor, Jay has the pride. Don't worry about it. And that's pretty much what I'm going to say on that. But
cool.
It's always in the spirit of Top Clack to put the news out there, put the information out there. So in the spirit of Top Clack, I can't just not include the post just because it involves Jay. So because of that, we're going to talk about it. That's my final answer. Anyways,
sure.
Let's take a look at this board. So 7-degree angle. It's going to use a 2-piece aluminum case. The default plate seems to be carbon fiber in either a fixed ONSI or a fixed ISO layout. Love seeing the both fixed options offered. Colors still to be decided. It is going to be a very unique gasket / maglev mount. And just because I have read through all of this thread, of course, but because you'll probably do a little bit better of a job explaining it, can you talk a little bit about the maglev system and why you decided to go with that?
So yeah, okay. So this idea has been percolating around in the back of my head for years, and I think there's a ton of people in the community that have often talked about doing maglev boards. You know, it's not a new thing to the community. So you know, I think since I posted this interest, I've had 6 other designers come up to me and say, I've been thinking about something similar. Can we talk about how you've implemented it, and I'll show you how I've implemented it. You know, and there's been some really good conversations like that. I think the only one that's public at the minute is Lewis Flood. So Lewis, if you watch this, you know, I really like your design as well. You should get an interesting up, because I think that's a really interesting take on a similar idea. So it's really good to know that other people are thinking about this as well. And I think the first time I ever mentioned this to you, Brian, was before I was even on Top Clack. I remember having a conversation in the Top Clack Discord with you about how it would be cool to do something like this. So this has been in my head for a long while. And where this came about from was I kind of wanted to do something like this, and Flex, who did the Flex Virgo, which ran in Group Buy last week, and we covered it on the show last week as well. He approached me about the Virgo towards I think it was September, October time last year. In fact, no, it was August last year. August last year is when it was. And we got talking, and we started to hash out the things that we'd want to do in future projects. The whole idea of maglev came up, and this kind of idea was born. Now, this has been months in design and kind of talking about how we would do things. And as you can see from the interest check thread, we've bought magnets and breadboards, and we've had some other prototypes that be 3D printed, which sadly don't exist anymore. But we've been doing a whole range of different things to try out how to do certain things and get things to work in the correct manner. And the idea is that the magnets will repel each other. So we found a specific type of magnet that instead of having the north and south, so if you've got a bar, most magnets have the north on one end and the south on the other end. We actually found some magnets that have it on the thin side, so you'd have north on here and south on here, which means that we can then enable us to have a north-facing and south-facing repulsion, rather than having to do one magnet this way and then one magnet that way to get the repulsion working. Because when you do it with magnets that have north and south on the ends, and then you've got the opposite above, it kind of wants to push it one way or the other. So these magnets help us try and get it elevating in the vertical plane away from each other and repelling straight up. The second thing that we realized as we were talking through this is that the plate is always going to be pushed against the top case, and as you push it down, it's going to bounce back up, because that's how the repulsion works. So we did a really common thing, I think, speaking to some of the other designers. They've all come up with a similar sort of solution to this, using a very similar style gasket to the JO1, where it tops out and presses against the top case, putting a gasket under there for 2 reasons. 1, to stop that harsh repulsion catching up into the top case, and 2, also to add friction so that you can actually push down, move around the assembly, release, and then get it all lined up perfectly as well. So it offers a really easy way to adjust the board if the magnets do push things out of alignment. So that's kind of where we've come from. In terms of the board itself, it does have chunky bezels, as people have noticed. That's because the magnets have to be quite wide to have that north and south facing on the thinnest poles to add the repulsion that we need. So that was kind of based around the actual technology of the magnets themselves. The magnet pushes up from the base and down from the plate, so that's where the repulsion happens. Magnets are attached to the carbon fiber plate and to the base, and then the gasket is attached to the top case, so it's kind of like 3 separate parts.
So basically, if it's sitting still, it's kind of like top mount, where the plate is actually pressed up against the top portion of the case, and then there's basically nothing below it other than air. And then when you type down, the plate just kind of falls down a little bit, because you're pressing against a magnet, obviously, so there's going to be resistance.
You're pushing it, and it's bouncing effectively on the air.
Which is really cool to me. I know I've had conversations with people about this, you know, like you were talking about like a year ago or more. You know, I've been hearing people talking about some kind of, you know, magnetic plate system, but no one's really seemed to actually do it yet. So you know, props to you for actually putting this out there. This actually seems really well thought out. I kind of really dig this whole system here.
Cool. Prototypes have been ordered. They've been on order for a while. The reason why the interest checks come out now before we've got the prototype, and a few people have asked this, is purely because the prototype's been delayed because of the coronavirus in China. So,
which we'll talk a little bit more about later.
Yeah, this is one of the examples I had for the show when we said later on. So this has been ordered for a while. It's just something that Flex and I are both waiting for, yeah, because of that, we wanted to get people's interest and thoughts and kind of iterate on layouts and other different types of options that we might add to the board as well. So yeah, in terms of the actual styling, as I said, the bezels are chunky because of the magnets. This is the first board, so we just wanted to do something quite simple, two-piece case design, no weights, anything like that. Just keep it simple. This is very much, proof of concept, proving that this kind of mount will work. We don't know how it's going to feel. We've only got the proof of concept with breadboards, and we have got some with plates and stuff attached, but which I will share pictures of. I'll upload those to the thread actually. But until we get the actual final prototype, we don't know how it's going to feel to type. That's the simple thing. And I do call it out in the thread that the group buy is completely dependent on the success of the prototype. If it's crap, I will be completely honest, and I will say that on the stream when I build the board. I will tell you guys it's crap. There's not going to be a group buy. It's not worth doing. But if it works, which I hope it does, then I'm really excited to share that.
And this is awesome. This is like real innovation in this community now. And everyone was so afraid to take that first step because the chance of failure is admittedly there. It's not exactly low. So it's going to be really interesting because if this does work out, this could be really, really cool.
It could be. I think it all depends. I think the innovation's there. Other people are working on similar things. I think the innovation is absolutely there. I don't think we've been particularly innovative about it. There is some clever stuff we're doing with orientation of magnets, which I won't talk about on this stream, but I will talk about when I've got a prototype on hand and I can show people. But there's some clever orientation stuff that we're doing. But yeah, I think there's absolutely a ton of people out there. The only difference is we've been stupid enough to spend money on it. That's the big difference.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to comment a little bit on the bottom design here. Is this the same bottom design as the Allison?
No, it's not. It's very, very different. The
Okay.
original concept of this was actually drafted up before we saw the Allison. So one of the things that the Allison does, it kind of, if you're looking for, in fact, do I have one of them available so I can show?
There's a very subtle curve on the sides.
I thought I had an Allison available, but I don't to show. But the if you flip the Allison over and you're looking at it from the bottom side, the base is kind of like a smooth plane, and then it curves out to the side like this. This curves the other way, so this is convex rather than concave. And the sides aren't straight as well, so you can't particularly see it in the image you're showing at the minute. But right down at the bottom is a picture with the silver base. That you can see where it shows kind of like 4 keyboards in one, but there's actually kind of like almost like a sculpted Coke bottle shape to the bottom that you can kind of just see on that edge piece there. So we wanted to keep it something simple, something different, something elegant and classy, but it's very much a convex shape with a kind of sculpted side. So it's almost like where your fingers would slide in towards the center of the board to pick it up. But again, it's just something simple that we went with for the first board that we do in this kind of mounted system.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it looks pretty nice. What about the top right blocker here? Obviously, with the thicker bezels and at the addition of the blocker, you have a lot of dead space there. Is there a plan to actually do anything with that?
Not particularly. It was just to see how it comes out. We've had multiple iterations of the top piece. So if you actually look at the plate's actually got a key there because we have some renders later on in the thread that were posted later on that have the key there. We have some other renders that we haven't shared yet where there's some different layouts on the top as well. So a Dixie-style bottom row, a HHKB kind of esque inspired one, and some other bits and pieces as well. We just picked that one of the few top designs that we've had, and again, it was very much an interest check to see what people would want to do or not do. Some people really liked that kind of blocker without having anything on it. Other people said, oh, you should put a logo there. Other people said get rid of it entirely. All really valuable feedback that we can use to try and help us decide which way we want to go with the top case.
Might I suggest indicator LEDs there?
You can suggest that.
All right, there we go. There's my suggestion. Clearly, Jay is in love with my suggestion. Well, regardless, I think the board is really, really interesting, and I think it definitely has the potential. One thing I'm worried a little bit on is the price. Obviously, without the dedicated weight, you lose a little bit of cost there. But I mean, is this magnet system going to be expensive to actually implement? Are we looking at like a $400 board, a $500 board, a $1,000 board here?
It's not a $1,000 board. It's I mean, from the actual case design, it's relatively inexpensive compared to some other boards that I've done. It's 2-piece, so I wouldn't want to comment on a price yet, but it's not going to be up there. It's not going to be stupid numbers. It's going to be quite low. But yeah, and of course, like anything I do, it'll be as low as we can possibly get it when it comes to group buy. If it's any good, as I say, if this is crap, I will be completely and brutally honest when I get it on stream. I will tell people it's crap if it is. If it works well, I will be honest as well, and I'll say it works great. But I'm not going to push a project to group buy just because people think they want it. If I think it's absolutely terrible and I'm not confident in the product, I wouldn't ever do that. So yeah, so watch the space is all I
feel like there's going to be no real in between here. Either this is going to be very good and successful, or it's going to be absolute garbage.
Yeah, and until I get the parts in, I can't tell you. So again, we've been delayed significantly by coronavirus, which we'll talk about later on in the show. So until we get the board in, I don't want to say either way. I'm quietly confident that it's going to be nice, but I have to prove it first.
Yep. Cool. So like a lot of people, I'm really looking forward to this one. So hopefully we can check it out in the near future once you get the prototypes in.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, near future, we'll see how long.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Regardless, we are moving on our news doc. So next up is the interest check for the AKI-S, I think is what is going for here. It's a 65%, as you can see here. And let me just run off a couple specs from you, or for you. So 7-degree angle, aluminum housing, but polycarbonate is being considered. There is a brass middle and a brass weight, which I will show momentarily. Color options are going to be black and white. There's only 2 confirmed colors, but there could be more. Plate options, brass, aluminum, polycarbonate, and carbon fiber, and the PCB is going to support QMK and have underglow. So let's take a look at one of the defining characteristics of this board, which is the side profile, which I guess that'll have to do here. So it has these kind of very kind of aggressive lines that kind of are angled inward. You know what this reminds me of a lot? This actually reminds me a lot of the Kira 60 design, but kind of inverted instead of pushed out. So on the Kira, it has a very similar kind of side profile appearance, but the Kira, flares outward, whereas this kind of moves in, which I think is kind of interesting. So very
convex and concave.
Yeah, very interesting kind of design language going on here. How do you feel about this?
So there's a few things on this board that I do like. I really do like the red accent piece that's a separate bar that fits into the top of the case. I think that's really nice. I'm also a fan of having different coloured middles. Those that my J series very much have the different middle coloured piece. I think it looks fine in terms of the board as a whole. It'll be fine board. One of the things that I do notice that they've done as well, which is good, is they've changed the logo. So for those that you don't know, the logo on this board, the triangle-shaped logo in the bottom left-hand corner, was very similar to another maker in the community, which is Alchemist Keyboard. So the guys behind the Rain, I don't know if you remember that, Brian, the Rain, the kind of mini 40% with a numpad. The original logo they had on this board was very similar to that, and a few people did call it out and were speaking in a couple of the discords I'm in, so the UK discord, about how that similarity was there. So it's really nice to see that they've taken that feedback on board. They've realized that they've inadvertently and accidentally stepped on someone else's toes with that, and they've updated the logo, so I'm really happy to see that. That being said, I'm not sure I like the logo being on top of the case in that bottom corner on the bezel. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I can't decide if I'm a fan or not.
It's very polarizing. I completely agree. I feel like it's one of those things where either you're totally for it or totally against it. And I will say it is kind of awkward, but I'm totally for it. What's kind of interesting is you got to remember, it's a sticker. It's a metallic sticker, very easy to take off or just not apply, assuming that the end user applies it. So that's a pretty easy scenario to fix if you're not a fan of it. But I kind of like the option. I like the idea of metal stickers. I feel like it gives your board a lot more flair, as we've seen with a lot of the HHKB metal stickers. I think it kind of elevates it just a little bit. So I really do appreciate that. I actually like seeing that there. And like you, I do appreciate the I don't know what to call this. I guess they call it an accent bar, which is this bar that's right here above the numero here. That's actually not part of the case. That's a separate accent bar, so you kind of get a little bit more customization and weight there as well. So that's kind of interesting. It is a top mount board, and it does actually sport the Bauer style bottom row too, which is pretty attractive. I like that every time I see it.
It is a nice bottom row. There's a few of the boards that have done it as well historically. I know we all say the Bauer's the one that did it. There was a few boards that did it before, but I think the Bauer's the one that's brought its popularity. And it is a really attractive bottom row. It is very attractive. It does work well.
Yeah, can't really complain. Other than that, nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary happening here. It does look pretty nice. Interest check came out pretty well. He has a lot of information here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I kind of like the way this looks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be really interesting to try and pick one of these up and see how it is in real life. Having all of those different accent pieces and making sure that they're milled straight and making sure that that accent piece gets shipped without any bends or kinks in it could be quite difficult depending on the material choices and things. So yeah, interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that depending on interest, he's looking at a 40 unit cap. So not a terribly high amount of units. So if this is something you're interested in, make sure you follow it closely.
Absolutely. Yeah, great.
Cool. All right, moving on. We have an interest check for the Synth Labs 060. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm sticking with. Which is a gasket mount, a 60% keyboard with a very interesting design language, I will say.
Yeah.
And yeah, not a ton of info on this board, but does have a 7-degree angle, QMK PCB with a USB-C breakout board. Housing is aluminum, and there are a few different brass parts. The plate, the weight, and the bar, which goes over the top here. I'm trying to find the best picture to show off the bar. I don't know. I'm not really in love with most of these pictures, but this kind of shows off the bar here. So
yeah,
they've moved straight past pen rails, Jay, and they have landed on this bar. How do you feel about the bar? Because I feel like it doesn't serve any purpose.
All right. Okay. So, let me talk about this board from a design perspective. I think there is some super cool features on this. Okay.
Yes.
So the pen bar and pen. I'm going to call them
shelf.
pen holders.
Shelf is what I was calling it earlier.
The shelf at the rear and the bar in front. The bar is not a pen bar. It's absolutely useless for that. It won't work. It's going to be too high for most pens, and also there's nowhere to sit it behind. It'll just drop onto the shelf. So I'm going to say the bar is not a pen rail. It's an accent rail or an accent bar, whatever you want to call it. And the actual shelf is potentially a pen rail. Okay. That's my first thought. The second thing is these. The rear of this board is really, really, really interesting. So one of the things that this reminds me of, and I'm a huge motorsport fan, is it looks like the car's got a rear diffuser of sorts. And this kind of grille, some people have likened it to a heatsink kind of back row, is really intriguing to me. Visually, it's striking. I am not sure how I feel about it as a keyboard, but I think as a piece of artwork, this whole thing is kind of stunning. I'm not sure how practical it would be in real life, and there is some challenges though with that design that we'll come and talk about in a few minutes as well. But yeah, really interesting. I visually striking. That's the easiest way I can say it.
It's very striking. This is one of those boards where when someone sees you using it and they walk up to you and they start to look at it and they're like, "What the heck?" And, there's kind of like a charm in that, and I kind of appreciate that here as well. So this back kind of, I don't know, fin array, I guess is what you might want to call it, is actually part of the weight as well.
Yes.
Let me open up these some of these assembly.
The assembly shots show how it breaks out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun in itself. It kind of serves dual purpose there. I like seeing that. The bar, I really don't get. I mean, I guess it kind of has to be there to complete the this particular aesthetic, because it might look a little too funky if you just had the pen shelf, as I'm gonna call it, which you can kind of see cut out here. Obviously, you can put lots of things there. And like Jay mentioned, the bar is totally useless. It's just there to serve an aesthetic purpose, and it does that. I don't know.
It does.
What do you guys in chat think while we're talking about this? What do you guys think? Is this too out there of a design? Is this silly? Is this non-functional?
I don't think it is. It reminds me in some ways of old Art Deco pieces from the 1920s when you had some really funky kind of furniture and things like that. It does really remind me of how things like that were back in the day. The one thing that does make me wonder on this is cost. There is a lot of angles to this. Even if you don't, before we get onto the diffuser fin piece at the back, the fin array, there's a lot of angles on this. There's a lot of different corner radiuses that equals additional cost. But then when you take into that piece that's the weight at the back with those kind of fins on, that's a lot of machining to get that piece to look like that. That's not a formed piece of metal. It's not individual pieces cut from a plate and then slotted together. That's one piece of brass that's milled to look like that. That's going to add a lot of cost to the board, because it's just a huge amount of milling and time to create something like that. Never mind polishing or anodization or whatever else you're going to do to it afterwards, depending on the material it's made from. So that's really interesting, and it does give you some design constraints as well. So one of the things that isn't shown on this is where the PCB and the USB ports would come out of it and things like that. Now, what he does say in the discussion is that because of the distance between the fins, he would actually have to use a daughter board and turn it on its side, so it'd be vertically mounted, so the USB port would be vertical instead of horizontal, which is really interesting. And how he would sit that through those particular fins to get it to work would be, I'll be interested to see how that works. But it does feel like it's a kind of unfinished design until that piece is implemented. Now, there's other ways around it. He could remove, say, the middle fin, or he could make the gaps bigger between the fins, or whatever else he wants to do. I suspect there's certain ratios at play here that make it look as nice as it does from the rear. So changing that ratio for the fins might make it look slightly different, or might make it look slightly worse. All depends on how he goes about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very polarizing design, but I'm looking forward to seeing a prototype if possible. There is no estimated price mentioned, but it is expected to be quite high, as Jay was just discussing.
Yeah.
So
I can't see.
Yeah,
No.
It's a really cool design, though. I think there's a lot of fun in this, and there's definitely a lot of potential in it as well. But it is very out there. I feel like it might be kind of tough to sell people on this design just because it's so different from what people are used to. But I, for one, welcome that kind of thing. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think just as a design piece, as an art piece, this is great anyway. So even if this never goes further than this, the fact that someone's actually taken the time to design this is an amazing thing anyway. So I wouldn't want to take anything away from that. Whether it's actually going to make it to production in any way, shape, or form, we'll see. But just as a piece of art and a piece of design and things like that, I think this is great, and it's really good to see someone do something so off the wall that it really gets everyone talking about it.
Yeah, most definitely. So we'll check this out once again during the group buy phase, as usual. Moving on, speaking of group buys, this is actually not an interest check thread like the rest of them have been. Oh my god, this is a group buy for the Luna, which is a pretty interesting keyboard. Let me find the album there. There we go. So this is the physical prototype. I'm going to just run off a few specs for you guys take a look at that. Another very polarizing design, I suppose. 5-degree angle. It's going to use a hot swap QMK PCB by 1UP. So it's going to use 1UP's HTE PCB, which is their hot swap edition. Nothing terribly fancy, but it is QMK, which is nice. It's going to have interchangeable acrylic rings, which I'll show momentarily. I'm calling them middles because I think that's just a little bit easier. The bottom can either have a mirror polished stainless steel weight or a frosted acrylic accent piece, which is kind of interesting. It is manufactured by Salvin, and there are 4 colors available: black, silver, blue, and red, and it closes on the 1st of March. So as you might be able to tell from this plate, it actually, or not from the plate, but the picture, it does use an integrated plate, 5mm if I'm not mistaken, and it looks like the base model price is $350 US. Yeah, so that's a little interesting here. So I'm gonna show you guys these prototype pics, and then we're gonna head over to the actual product page where there's a few things that I do want to point out that I find are kind of interesting.
Yeah, so a couple of things from me on this one before we jump over to the group buy page. First of all, big shout out to Salvan. He's one of the best manufacturers. His attention to detail is excellent. So I would expect this to be just as nice in real life as any of his products in terms of the fitment and finish and everything else. So big props to Salvan. And also, Salvan, if you watch this, congratulations, because I think he had a trial recently as well. So going by his Instagram, he had his new son with him in his shop, which is really nice to see as well. So well done and congratulations on that. And a new apprentice for you in the shop. So there's a couple of things for me, and we'll talk about the group buy side of it in a second, which I suspect you're going to jump onto. For one, I like the inspiration behind this. So this, for those that you don't know, this is kind of inspired by the cockpits of the old flight controls and everything else of spacecraft, and they kind of had all this kind of jagged edge to them, which is where the inspiration comes from. There is a picture of that. I think it's the 9th picture in the album, if you want to flick over to that. So you can see all the kind of flight controls, you can see the panel design and all of that stuff. You can see where that kind of inspiration comes from, and then they've got the kind of picture on the right-hand side showing how it interlaces. The only problem I have with it is that picture that shows the two boards interlacing. It just reminds me of coffee filters. I don't know why, but I can't get the image out of my mind.
Yeah.
Of just someone putting two coffee filters down on the table. And please don't take that as a negative against the board. I don't think it is. I don't intend it to be. It's just that's just what jumps to mind when I see those. It just reminds me of two coffee filters.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very polarizing design, like several of the keyboards we've been checking out today. I don't know. I don't really know my thoughts on this one. I don't think I like the way it looks. I get what they're going for, and I kind of like that, that jagged edge, almost industrial kind of approach. It's very sharp, but yeah. I just can't really get behind the overall aesthetic. It's just not really for me, but I appreciate what they're going for here. One thing there's a couple things I do want to point out, though. I'm just going to head over to the product page as well. So let's take a look at the included PCB, which is included. You can't remove it for a discount, unfortunately. I wish you could, because
I was going to mention that.
Because this particular PCB actually uses south-facing LED switches, or I'm sorry, north-facing LED switches. So the switches. Do I have a switch on hand here? Yes, I do. Okay, so the switch sits in the PCB kind of upside down, I guess you could say, as the switch pins actually go in down here as opposed to up here, which is way more standard. So the reason why this is unfortunate for me is because not only do I think it looks a lot less neat when you have the switches facing that particular way, but with some keycap profiles and some keycap manufacturers, you can actually hit the housing before you bottom out the switching, or before you bottom out the switch, when they're like that, just based on how the keycaps are designed and how thick the housing is on one side versus the other. So this is what the community generally considers the wrong way to go about this, and I completely agree, and it's very unfortunate. With that said, I do believe that this PCB is actually fairly standard in terms of its layout and USB port, so you could, in theory, swap out this PCB for another one that still supports all the basic stuff, but maybe has the south-facing switch orientation, which is just flat out better, guys. Just flat out better. So I would like to see that just become an option. Don't force the PCB on people. Just make it an additional option. If people want to add it, they can. If they don't, let them save the 30, 40, 50 bucks or whatever it is. That's what I would prefer. All right, so with that said, let me go on to something I also thought was kind of interesting here. So a base kit is going to run you $350. That's the starting price. You have a choice of Sangon top or HHKB top, which is an interesting way to put that. That actually only changes one key on this particular layout because the bottom right is reserved for this polycarbonate insert and the LED that's going to go under that, obviously, with that hot swap PCB. So that's kind of where you get that. So interestingly enough, he says that Sangon requires 62 switches and HHKB requires 60, which normally would be true. However, because of that, it's actually reduced by 1. So you need 61 for Sangon and 59 for the HHKB. Now, here's what I find the most interesting about this group buy. So the frosted acrylic accent or insert that would go into the bottom in place of the weight, if you don't opt for the stainless steel weight, is the exact same price, which is kind of odd. How often do you see acrylic options the same price as the metal options, especially in a weight scenario?
Yeah, you generally don't. So that is it's a really interesting point. Yeah, we'll have to see how that.
I almost wonder if that's an error. Let's be honest. In terms of raw materials, acrylic is immensely cheap, really, really cheap. Metal, way more expensive. And metal's not even that expensive, but way more expensive than acrylic. So I almost wonder if that's some kind of error, because imagine if that were brass. Like, your brass and your acrylic options cost the same. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see it, and I can't imagine they do cost the same unless he's just accounted for, if everyone orders the stainless steel version, this is how much it will cost me, and therefore that's the price, and I've based it on that. However, if they buy the the acrylic version, then I will save X%, and well, then that's a small saving for him as the group buy runner, which is entirely his prerogative, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I suspect if the price is right and the same for both, that's probably how it's been worked out. Base it on the most expensive part, and if people don't order that and they choose a cheaper part, well, then it's slightly more profit margin, or slightly more availability to do future projects or whatever else he wants to reinvest the funds in. Maybe that's how it's been.
Sure. And like I mentioned earlier, how I'd get back to the rings, where these are the rings, as they're calling them. I'm going to call them middles. And they're kind of just like an additional layer, like we've seen in boards like, I don't know, the E6 V2, where you kind of get that side kind of ring that goes around it. Yeah, kind of adds a nice kind of sandwich effect. I'm a fan. But overall aesthetic, it's just not really for me. I think the price point is fine. Integrated plate, a lot of people not a big fan of that, especially at this particular price point. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but that we will. I want to meet the guy who gets the acrylic insert for the same price as the steel weight. I want to meet the person that does that. If you do that, let me know, because you're my hero if you do.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Oh, man. Too good. All right. Well, moving on to something that's also in group buy right now is the TX Keyboards EO87, which is pretty interesting. So this is it's an acrylic board, for better or worse, depending on if that's your thing. It is a injection molded acrylic board, which is also kind of interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, it's TX first acrylic board. So a lot of cool things happening here. So just a few quick specs here. 7-degree angle, injection molded case. You're going to have options for WinKey and WinKeyless versions on this TKL. You're actually going to have a couple different finishing options for the acrylic. You can either have a frosted look, which you can see in this picture here, a little bit more standard. And then there is a crystal version, which is a very, very clear, highly transparent acrylic, which is kind of nice too. It's almost like an ice effect, like an ice cube sort of thing. I kind
Absolutely,
of normally I don't like transparent acrylic or polycarbonate, but I gotta be honest, that looks kind of good on this board.
Yeah.
A couple things that are also really cool is there's going to be no unit cap on this. So if you order one, you're gonna get one. So I like seeing that, and I also like seeing the starting price, $185 for a kit. That's pretty inexpensive. That is cheap, that is of course without the brass weight option, and that is the FR4 plate option, which is as a material, FR4 is way cheaper than most other materials, so that's helping to keep that price below here. It does get a little more costly when you start upgrading to metal plates as well as adding the brass weight. You start getting up to $250. Still not terribly high though. Injection molded acrylic, very inexpensive, and we're seeing that pay off dividends here.
Yeah, well, you say it's not very expensive, but one of the things to talk about here is that the actual setup of the molds to do the injection molding is very expensive. So once you have those molds in place and you can do the injection molding, it becomes very cheap, and it's literally a handful of dollars to make them at that point. But you have that huge setup cost up front, which TX and Kin have clearly paid for in advance to make sure that they've got these available. So it is worth bearing that in mind. It's not a cheap setup to be able to produce these boards, and they won't be doing them in kind of mass market volume. So I'm talking, like the likes of Razer and Corsair and other huge companies like that, where they'll make literal hundreds of thousands of these. It's TX Keyboards, they're going to be making handfuls in comparison. So in the high hundreds, maybe potentially in the low thousands. But it's worth bearing in mind that there is an extreme cost to set up these molds in usually in the 5-figure range. So it's worth bearing that in mind.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. But so the group buy is open right now, and it ends on March 2nd. So you still have coming up on 2 weeks to still get one of these. And are you going to get one of these? I'm thinking about getting one of these actually.
So
pretty inexpensive.
I am. I mean, there's some of the big draws. One, it comes with a TX bag as well, as all TX boards do, and a cable, which is huge. So those TX bags on their own are $30. So you've got an instant saving on that as well. Mr. Petrov was just asking something that I was literally going to touch on as well. Given the design of the top plate being Alu on an acrylic case, what's your guess as to how this sounds? I have absolutely no idea how this is going to sound, and that's part of the reason why I want to pick one up to try it out. So the other thing as well about these, the base on these, because of the way they're formed, it's actually quite a dense plastic, so it's going to sound very different to standard acrylic boards. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this does sound, but it wouldn't sound the same as kind of like as a stacked acrylic board like this, where it's just different layers put together. It will sound very, very different. How, I don't know. I want to try it out. I want to have a look and get one, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to check that out. I'm gonna attempt to get one as well. I don't know what kind of configuration I want yet, but the price is really interesting, and it looks pretty cool as well. Gotta be honest.
Yeah, it does. It looks really good. Yeah, it's really interesting. Just a couple of things really, really quickly on this one before we move on. A few people did ask me, and I think they reached out to a few other people in the EU community as well, and they were saying, what were my thoughts on this, because the board is significantly more expensive in the EU than it is anywhere else. So there's a few things to bear in mind with that, and they do talk about this on the TX page and on the group buy thread on Reddit as well. Effectively, the MyKeyboard.eu pricing is inclusive of all taxes and shipping charges. So you have to remember that any boards that are imported into the EU, they have VAT on top. So you instantly have to add 20% onto the cost of everything. It's just the way the EU is. It's one of those things. That might change with Brexit for those of in the UK. We don't know yet. We'll see how that goes. So you just have to bear that in mind, and there's all shipping included as well. So just if you are in the EU and you're considering this and you see the price is very different from the US one, that's why work it out, and you will see that it is absolutely online in terms of price. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're also doing something a little different here with shipping. So in an effort to get the best shipping costs for everyone, basically there's a specific code that you want to use when you check out from your particular retailer there to make sure that you get like the best shipping costs that you possibly can. If you forget that code, your board's going to ship directly from Korea, and obviously you're going to be responsible for the shipping, and it could be a lot more expensive because of that. So make sure you're buying from the right proxy. Make sure you're using that code so you can get the cheapest shipping that you possibly can.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yeah, it's all laid out well in the Mech Market thread that Jay linked just a moment ago. So, bam, there you go. Very, very nice. All right, shall we move over to some key sets?
Yeah, that'd be good. We're just over the hour mark, so we've got about 45 minutes to try and keep to our 2-hour timeline. I think we might struggle with that a little bit, but let's
well, key set topics go a lot quicker than keyboard topics. There's a lot less to talk about. So yeah, we're still working on our timeline, guys. So just bear with us, but we are trying to speed things up just a little bit for you. So interest check here for PBT SA Arctic Wolf, and it's based on, well, Arctic wolves. So pretty interesting there. So unfortunately in this page there isn't really any renders, so it's kind of a bummer. Normally I don't add threads that have no renders, but I feel like the rest of the thread is laid out well enough to where I can just barely justify it this week. So he does have a little bit of a kind of a kit breakdown here, I presume. I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about this, I gotta be honest with you. PBT SA, though, I do like. Signature Plastics has run sets in the past in PBT, and I think it came out pretty well, so I'm glad to see that. Here, however, I'm a little interested, because I don't know if SP, who are running the set, Signature Plastics, I don't know if they do reverse die sub. And at least for this novelties kit, you would need a reverse die sub on that.
Yeah, I am not sure if they do or not. I know they haven't historically, so whether that's something that's changed, then we shall have to see. Yeah, I really don't know if they have that capability anymore. So we'll have to see if they do it.
Yeah. As far as the colors are concerned, how do you feel about this set? Successful?
I think they're fine. Yeah, it looks all right. There was I did see this the other day. There was another kit to this that's been removed. So I don't know where that's gone, but that was very similar to Pulse, actually, SA Pulse. It was very similar to that. So yeah, I don't know if that's gone, if that's coming back. Or
I think it might have gotten removed, judging by some of the comments that I read through earlier.
Okay. A couple of interesting things to note. The colours are fine. I don't mind the blue. It kind of all fits with the theme. The I said a couple of things now. In the base kit profile, it looks like the space bars are concave. In other words, they scoop in. I suspect that's very much not going to be the case, and these will be convex and they'll bow out. I've never seen any Signature Plastics molds with them scooped in like that.
Just an error.
I think that's just an error in the lighting on the caps, so we shall see how that goes. The other thing that I want to call about the base kit is, and I'm not sure if you noticed, Brian, but there's not just an ISO enter in there. There's also another enter in there, a big ass enter, which is really quite interesting because we don't see those very often.
It's pretty rare. I mean, very, very few people actually use big ass enter. You know, particularly in their customs. So, but I mean, they can do it, and if it adds virtually nothing to the cost, sure, why not?
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to build a big ass enter custom board just because now it really interests me.
Yeah, I think you got to do it, Jay. I honestly think you got to do it.
Now I need to find a PCB that supports it and everything. Oh, right, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll try and come up with a project for it. Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Also, before we get too involved here, a quick shout out to a couple subs that we missed earlier. Straight Classy resubscribed Tier 1 for 13 months earlier. Thank you so much for that, as well as Mountain Blocks, 16 months in a row with Tier 1. So thank you so much. And Mr. Petrov donated $10 and said, "Take my tip." Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for giving us your tip.
We always appreciate when you give us the tip, Petrov.
Yeah. Just a quick question on this one from Melodet. So how does the stabs even work for that on the big ass enter? So it's actually 2 switches and the stabilizer. So if you've ever seen the underside of an ISO enter cap, it's very similar. So you have a vertical stabilizer. So instead of the ANSI one, which goes horizontally, you turn the stabilizer vertically. And you have a switch in the middle of that stabilizer. And then on the big ass enter as well, you also traditionally have a switch on kind of that leg that comes out onto the left-hand side as well. So you'd have a secondary switch under that point as though it was a 1U keycap. So that's traditionally how it's done. Usually one of those switches is disabled on the PCB or in QMK or on the couple of custom builds I've seen with these. That being said, I've never seen a Signature Plastics big ass enter underneath, so I don't know if that's how it works on this. It may just be the standard ISO mat for all I know. But traditionally that's how it used to work on historic boards.
Cool. Yeah, so base kit compatibility, not too bad either, all things considered. It looks like you're missing, while you do have the ISO enter, you seem to be missing the rest of the ISO compatibility, which is kind of strange. So yeah. you get ISO enter and nothing else?
Yeah, there is no, as far as I can see looking at this, there's the shift key, but there isn't the two, so the shift keys on that row of shift keys, it is in there underneath the Windows key on the right-hand side, but there isn't the additional 2 1U alpha keycaps that you need that go next to the Z and on the left-hand side, and next to the enter on the right-hand side. Those are missing, so ISO support does not work in this base kit as it exists. So yeah, it's a slight bit of a shame.
Yeah, Pluto in chat says bizarre set, and I'm kind of inclined to agree. I'm assuming none of this is finalized, so that's what I'm hoping for, at least. What do you think about the novelties pack, though, aesthetically? I think it's pretty good.
The novelties are okay. Nothing jumps out at me to say that I like it or not. A couple of the ones on the right-hand side that do remind me of that DCS Twilight. Was it Twilight? Something or other?
What
was that called?
Was it Midnight?
Midnight, something like that. Yeah, that had a wolf keycap for the.
Had a wolf howling at the moon.
Yeah, it does remind me of that a little bit.
I can see that.
Yeah. What was that set called now? Was it called Twilight, Midnight, something like that?
Midnight. I'm pretty sure it was Midnight. Chat will correct us. They always do. It's fine.
Okay, yes, it was DCS Midnight. Did it? And it had the Twilight modifiers. That was it. The Twilight modifiers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see how this progresses. I assume some revisions shall be done. Also, shout out to Long Schlong Boy, subbing at Tier 1 for 4 months. Always one of my favorite usernames. Says, "Love you, sexy bastards." Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Long Schlong Boy.
Speaking of sexy bastards, shall we move over onto the next interest check?
Yes.
I don't even know what it is. What is it?
I don't.
Okay. I was just I just either compliment or
that seemed like an awkward segue, but that's okay. That's what happens.
I tried. It was a compliment. It was meant as a compliment.
It's a live stream. That's how these things go. So the next up on the dock, we have an interest check for GMK Cyrillic Beige add-on kit by T Tom, and why not? Everyone else is doing add-on kits for every other sub-legend and language, so why not? That's all this is, a Cyrillic add-on kit to use with your either GMK 9009 or OG Cherry double shots, or Classic Retro KA 1953, anything with L9 alphas, as they say here. So it's just a drop-in replacement for those, so you can get your Cyrillic sub-legend on, and that's it. Stock colors, MOQ of 150 because of that. He's looking for a sub $50 price range, which I really hope he can attain. And yeah, there's not really too much to dislike about this, unless you just
there's a lot to like about it, though.
Unless you just really hate the Cyrillic characters, then I feel like there's a lot to like about this, and
I really like this. Yeah, I think there's a huge market for these legend keycaps. There's a lot of people like the OG ones with Cyrillic legends on. Those go for insane prices on the aftermarket with the original die subs. Some of the double shot versions as well. I actually picked up a UK version of these quite recently with red Cyrillic pad printed OG cherry keycaps and things like that. So there is a market for these. There are people that want them. I think this will be a huge addition to the community. I think it'll do just as well as something like Korean Beige from Zondat did. This is it's a great idea. I for one will definitely pick this up if it goes to group buy. I think it looks great.
Yep. Absolutely. So they are looking for a start time somewhere around April or May. Hopefully they hit it. All right, let's move on to something that isn't an add-on kit. This is an interest check for EnjoyPBT Triumph Adler Origins, aka TA Origins. So we have another Triumph Adler inspired set here. This is a pretty interesting one. So obviously, we know now that EnjoyPBT can do double shot ABS, courtesy of EnjoyPBT Venice. However, this is still a PBT die sub set, so that's how we're going to get all these kind of wacky TA-inspired characters and sub-legends here.
Yeah. First things first on this, I think this is quite possibly the best implementation of a TA set yet, especially that white kit. The reason for that is purely based on sub-legends and nothing else. There is some really, really great sub-legends on this. So I'm a big fan of sets that have sub-legends and things like that. Royal Alpha is one of my favorites because it's got all of the different crazy sub-legends on there and everything else. Huge fan of that set. Huge fan of, so for example, TA90, which was the last variation that we saw of this in GMK. I think you have that set, Brian, or had it?
I did own it, yeah. It was a little expensive as far as compatibility goes, but I like the set a lot. I've always been kind of a fan of all the Triumph Adler stuff, if I'm being totally honest, and this is no exception. I think this looks pretty wonderful as well.
Yeah, the just the way the sub-legends are laid out, I'm a huge fan of this. The white kit with the two-tone blues, I think this just shouts volumes to me. The accent keys there in that base kit, I am absolutely a huge fan of this. Some favourite highlights of mine include the way that the arrow keys have got arrows pointing in the opposite directions as well, but they aren't filled in, and some of the sub-legends like the micro sub-legends there, the different variations of the triple X on some of the keycaps, all of that kind of stuff I'm absolutely a huge fan of. And I really like the fact that they're using the mod key for the Windows key as well. Really like that too. It's great.
Yeah, I don't really have any complaints here. I think the two-tint blue was a really good idea. I think that looks absolutely wonderful to have both the shades there. The base kit proposal, I think, is pretty solid here. You have no numpad in the base kit, but you do get basic ISO functionality. You get a lot in this base kit, actually. I'm curious to know the price. EnjoyPBT tends to be more the value-centered form of this, so hopefully we can see something pretty low. I'm estimating this base kit won't exceed $100, and I really hope it doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised to see it as low as about $90. What do you think?
That'd be good. If it was that low, I mean, I'm already going to buy this, but if it was that low, I would absolutely be picking this up anyway. $90 for that base kit would be a good price. especially considering the quality of EPBT recently. The way that they've changed the molding process as well to try and reduce the warping of the large keys is being good to see as well. I know there's still some problems with that, but hopefully they'll have tidied that up by the time this goes to group buy. But yeah, huge fan of this set.
Yeah, definitely. Kit breakdown looks pretty good as well. You have alternate mods here if you prefer more the blue on the mods, or you can keep the more monochrome look and just stick with the base set. You have a 40s kit, which offers both colors as well, and pretty much any support you need there. And then, of course, a pretty standard numpad kit for anyone that needs it. So this is looking pretty nice. I can't see passing this up. This is probably a must-buy for me.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this, and it's definitely something that I'm going to be excited for. I think I prefer the monochrome style kit to the blue kit. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think the blue's a little bit too light for me on the blue kit. I'd have liked to see it with the darker blue from the alphas.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. If that blue were the blue from the alphas, I think it might make a little bit more sense to me, but I would stick with the just the base kit on this one as well, which I always like doing anyways because, hey, less money spent. I like value.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Heck yes. So we'll have to wait and see on this one, but looking very promising in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually have a keyboard somewhere, I don't know where it is, where I tried to do this myself with the original typewriter keycaps, which were GMK, and then do you remember the Blue Galoo set, the modifier set?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I do have a board with that. I have no idea where it is actually, but I do have those two on a board to try and emulate this.
Oh man, Blue Galoo and Cerecia, or whatever it was called. Man,
yeah, and
what a time to be alive.
Unicorn as well.
Unicorn.
I've got that. Yeah, Unicorn.
Yeah. Yep, good stuff out there. Anyways, but yeah, set looking pretty awesome. Jay and I definitely approve so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, once we see a price, then we can really know. All right, let's move on to something we haven't seen in quite a while, actually. MDA profile. So this is an interest check for MDA Plastic. MDA being the profile, Plastic being the theme and colorway here. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with MDA, it's basically a relatively short and flat profile. It does have some sculpt to it. It's a very smooth and consistent kind of curvature. I'll try to find a side profile picture here, but I don't think I found one earlier. This is probably good enough. But yeah, kind of a smooth and consistent curve and nothing too angular. But it's pretty nice. I've typed on it once or twice. It wasn't my favorite, but not because of the actual sculpt. I didn't personally like it because I thought the tops of the profiles were a little too wide, a little too large, and it feels kind of weird when you're glancing over the caps with your fingers. So it wasn't entirely for me, but a lot of people do like it. But regardless, let's take a look at the Plastic colorway. And I know you were talking a little bit about it before the show. You seem to be a little bit of a fan of this.
Yeah, kind of. So this is inspired by the off-white movement, with the double quotes and everything else. I know Straight Class is a fan of that if he's still watching. So this is a kind of apparel clothing kind of thing, as far as I understand it, where they put the names of things in quotes, like you might have a windbreaker called Windbreaker or whatever, or T-shirt. So this is taking that idea and that theme and putting it into a key set, which is why you have "This is Plastic" and other things as well in the quotes too. So you've got the tab, the caps lock, and all of those kind of keys in quotes as well. One of the interesting things I do like about this is the fact that on the keys themselves, it actually has a little sub-legend that gives you the size of the key and the row of the key as well. And it's just really quirky. Now, I wouldn't ever actually use this key set as something I wanted to type on, but if I had a board that I wanted to just sit on a shelf and have something fun on it, I think that this is kind of nice for that, which is a really bad reason to buy a key set. It's not a great reason to buy a key set at all. But I kind of think it's fun. I kind of think it's quirky. I think it's interesting. It's different. No one's done it before, so why not?
Yeah, certainly. I completely agree. I don't think I'd ever functionally use this set, but as something to like put on a keyboard, put it on your I don't know, in a display case or whatever, on your keyboard shelf or what have you, and it's like a showpiece basically, and I think that's kind of fun and playful in its own way.
Yeah, there's some really great sub legends on these as well. Like all of the shift keys say like row 3 and the unit size and stuff like that. But my favorite one, and it's not because I'm an ISO advocate, but my favorite one is says row 3 ISO.unit, and I just think that's really fun. That's just really silly. ISO.unit.
I don't think I actually looked at that one yet. Holy crap! Let me try to find it.
It's in the ISO kit. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, ISO.unit. I love it.
It's there.
That's pretty great. Yeah. Yeah, that's very fun and playful, and I feel like that's totally fine for a set like this too. Like it doesn't even need to be like aesthetically beautiful or super functional to be something that you like still want to buy. So
yeah,
it's kind of fun in that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the big text being across the spacebar. I don't like that element of it. I think This Is Plastic is a little bit too much for me on the spacebar. I do like the ones that say space on them, though.
Yeah, I was about to say in the actual kit breakdowns, they all just say space by the looks of it. So I don't know. That could just be some kind of error with the renders or something. Maybe they don't intend to actually do that, or it's just a joke. So we'll have to wait and see. This is going to be PBT die sub for anyone that's curious. And I imagine it probably won't be terribly expensive, because MDA tends to be one of the cheaper profiles. Last I checked. Yeah,
we shall have to see how it comes out, but I will definitely pick this up if it goes to group buy, because I think it's just fun. I think that This Is Plastic spacebar is actually in the novelties, looking at the kit breakdown, and you're right, all of the other spacebars do just say space on them.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll check this out again once it hits the group buy phase. Moving on to something I'm pretty excited for, actually. So this is the interest check for Red Alert R3, or Round 3. And this is run by Socialite, a very nice member of the Top Clack Discord. And he's trying to bring the set back. So this is a great post, by the way. The information's really good in here. I suggest you read it. Basically, Red Alert has been run twice before. The original runners have not been heard from in the community since 2014. So, been about 6 years that he did try to get a hold of them to ask if he could rerun them, but obviously it never got back to him because they're not active in the community anymore. So he made some slight changes to the red, and he is planning on running it. So good stuff there. And we don't really have a ton of renders or anything. We just kind of have a kit breakdown as well as a price breakdown. So I still felt the need to include this just based on the information that is provided here. If you're not familiar with DCS, it's a profile that used to be a lot more popular, and nowadays in our community, no one really uses it. It's a very kind of aggressively sculpted profile. I feel like for its size, it kind of reminds me a lot of Topra profile. In terms of keycap thickness, it has a very defining characteristic of being very thin. I don't know the exact measurement. It might be like 1 millimeter or 0.8 millimeter or something like that. But compared to the standard 1.5 millimeter cherry keycaps that a lot of us are used to, it's very, very thin, and thus does have a very huge effect on the acoustics of your keyboard build. So just keep that in mind. With that said, I think it's also part of the charm. I think it looks great. I think it can sound great. And it's just kind of an homage to, where we were in the community when I came into the community. So for that, I kind of have a lot of respect for it. And the pricing isn't terrible either. The kit, obviously, as you can see, not terribly packed. It does support some basic things, but that's about it. You do get, basic ISO support, things like that. There's no numpad. But one of the defining characteristics of the Red Alert set is the pure red line that goes across the row on the num row. That's kind of the signature style of this, and that's what he's keeping it with here. So kind of interesting. And the pricing breakdown, really interesting as well. He was thinking about doing a private run, but there's a pretty big price delta between 25 and 50 units sold, and it's really not terribly difficult to sell 50 units of pretty much any set these days. So I think this could definitely be pretty successful. It would run around $155 max at the 50 unit MOQ, and if you can get down to the 200 MOQ, you can get that $100 to $110 price point, which I think is going to attract a lot more people. So I'm banking on that.
couple of other things as well to consider that he's using DCS for this. Firstly, I agree completely. It's nice to see a DCS set come back. It's completely underrated as a keycap profile. In my eyes, we should use it a lot more than what we do. I've got some really old DCS key sets that I absolutely adore. So to see this come back, I think I've got one of the original rounds of Red Alert somewhere as well, actually. But yeah, I'm absolutely stoked to see this come back. I think it's a great colorway. It looks really nice. It's going to be great to see it back in DCS as well. The other thing about DCS as well is the fact that it's got a really short lead time on it. So as far as I'm aware, it's less than 2 months lead time to produce keycaps from the date the order's pressed with the manufacturer to ending production, and that's because no one's buying DCS keycaps these days. So it's not like GMK that's gone up to about 6 months kind of wait time now from 4 months. It's not like SA, which is what is that still over 12 months, I think, something like that.
It used to be even higher, but I think it's come down to about 12 months now.
Yeah. So, super interesting from that perspective as well. So I'm all for seeing this get run. I think he did say there's a couple of different ways he's going to do it as well. If it's under 50 units, he's probably going to, under 100 units, he's probably going to run it through Dixie Mex fulfillment service, which Dixie had launched a couple of weeks ago. If there's more than 100 and the MOQ for that kind of price bracket is feasible, then he may go the more traditional route by finding vendors to proxy around the world for it as well. So that will make it much more accessible for people outside of the States to get hold of it, which is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I will certainly be picking up a set of this if it hits, I don't know, the 100 MOQ or more probably, just because that price is reasonable enough. I wouldn't pay $200 for it. I probably wouldn't pay $155 for it personally, but I'd pay less than that.
The only suggestion I'd make to this is to see if you can investigate the opportunity to add a certain key that is available in DCS still through Signature Plastics, which is a 10U spacebar. I would absolutely love to have a TKL with a 10U spacebar, Wingkeeler's TKL with a 10U spacebar in it. So if that's possible, I would absolutely love to see one added.
That's pretty wild there, Jay. It's pretty wild. But you'd be the one person using it probably. But that'd be kind of interesting.
I would be the coolest of cats, though, with a 10U spacebar on my Jade.
You are right. You honestly would be pretty cool. I gotta admit that. So, yeah, look out for this. The interest check form, bam, big, bold, beautiful lettering right there. First thing on the list. I filled it out already. If you're interested in this, make sure you go fill it out as well. And let's make this happen. Let's get to that 200-plus MOQ for that low price.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, moving on to a group buy that is currently going on right now. This is the group buy for JTK Classic FC Triple Shot. So this is a set that we checked out Interest Check a while back. It's the NES inspired set, or the Famicom inspired set, Nintendo Family Computer. Depending on where you are regionally, you might know it as different things. But at the end of the day, this is Nintendo's kind of first major console. And they really push that in the design language as well, as you can see. Very, very big, bright, bold legends and novelties around there. It's very vivid.
It is, yeah. It's not necessarily a bad thing, though, in my opinion, for this particular set. I think that this is quite interesting. If we just talk about the kits for a second, so the base kit offers pretty much everything you could possibly need. There is so much choice in that base kit. Multiple different bottom rows, TKL, 65%. There's 75% support. There's a full UK ISO support in there. There is a ton of compatibility. There's even a couple of novelties with Cherry logos and JTK logos. A ton of 1U keys as well, which you don't always see for the bottom row. And 6 space-bars. So that's a huge base kit. There is a lot of keys in there. I can't think of anything looking at it that you wouldn't be able to cover with that base kit.
Yeah, it's not quite as intense as some of the kits we've been seeing from Infinikey, for example. But obviously, double shot ABS, a little bit different here. That's what JTK does. And I think this base kit is very, very feature-rich, and I like that. Price point...
Well, this is triple shot.
Yeah, triple shot, not even double shot. So, triple shot here, $100 base kit, and you get coverage for pretty much anything you'd need. Maybe despite being like a 40s user, for example, but there's still a lot of support for a lot in there, and you can't really complain about that. $100 over on novel keys in the US at least. So pretty inexpensive. Novelties pack, very, very vibrant, but, if this is one of those things where I feel like if you like the theme and you're really trying to drive it home, this is the set for you, because this set is very intense with the novelties pack. It's a lot less intense with just the base kit. I will say that.
Yeah, one of the really, really interesting things about this as well is that I haven't looked at the US pricing, because obviously I'm in the EU, so I'm looking at the EU pricing. So the base kit for this was 110 euros, which is fine. We know it's a little bit more expensive than what you'd expect in the US because there's import fees and everything else. But if you want the secondary alpha set, if you want to take the base kit, get the base kit, it's 110, and that gives you the triple shot alphas. But if you want a secondary set of alphas that's just got the traditional top left aligned legends, no triple shotting, just double shot legends, it's just 9.99 euros. So 10 euros for that kit, which is just insane.
That is crazy cheap. I'm opening up the novel keys link right now because it's probably,
I think it's $10. I think
it's $10 here too. Yeah, so that's pretty cheap.
I don't understand why you wouldn't buy those even if you intended to use it with another set, because
it's almost like it's like a no-brainer, right? Because for $10 that effectively gives you another supplemental alphas kit. So maybe if you like the colors, for example, you can use it with other sets as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really, really interesting there. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of years ago when KBDfans first put out their KB numpad. I don't know what they call it. It might just be KBD pad. I can't remember. But their first like metal numpad that they put out, they had an option where you could add EnjoyPBT keycaps for your numpad for $1. $1 was all it was. And I was trying to think of like, who's the guy that isn't going to spend the extra dollar?
It's $1. Those? Can I afford that? It's just bizarre, right?
And for reference, the number pad itself was like $80. So it's like, who's the guy that's not going to spend the extra $1 to get the very nice and neutral EnjoyPBT numpad set? So I kind of feel the same about this here. It's like, why would you not buy that $10 supplement alphas kit? Like, even if you have no idea what you're going to do with it, like at that point, it's really not that much different. So pretty interesting.
I still can't get over the pricing of that secondary alphas kit, because if that's only $10, I assume they're still making some kind of, they're not selling it at a loss. So let's assume they're breaking even on those. If that only costs $10 to produce, how much does the rest of the base kit cost? Must be, it's just an interesting thought experiment.
I mean, when JTK first started running sets through ControlAlt.io back during their first and second runs of JTK sets, obviously the base kits weren't as full back then, and they weren't doing triple shotting back then, but most of the options were between like $50 and $60 US, and the base kits did include things like numpad and HHKB Sangon support to some extent, stuff like that. So I think that $100 is quite reasonable for a triple shot base kit with that much compatibility. And the rest of the kits are, very well priced as well. That's just one of the things you get with JTK. Sometimes you get delays. Sometimes you get QC issues. They have been working on things. They have come a long way since their first two runs.
Yeah.
Huge. Still not perfect, but they have come a long way since their first couple runs. So, with that in mind, they've always been cheaper than something like GMK, which is their direct competitor, being double shot ABS in our community. So I think that this is a well-priced set that a lot of people should consider if you like the theme, because the price is quite justifiable here.
Fully agree. Yeah, I'll definitely be picking up a set of this just to try out, and definitely picking up some of those secondary alphas. Just before we move on, thank you very much to Seeker Player for raiding with a party of 13. Welcome, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on to our final topic and discussion point, more, I guess, of the day. So let's talk a little bit about the coronavirus, or more specifically, the Wuhan coronavirus, and the effects it's having on our community. So if you've been living under a rock and you have no idea what's going on, basically there is you can't really call it an epidemic, I guess, but there's kind of a widespread panic in a sort, because coronavirus from Wuhan has been kind of leaked out into the rest of the world, for lack of a better term. and you know, a lot of people are getting sick from it. Now, in China, this is becoming kind of a big deal, and you know, it's having an effect on a lot of our factories that a lot of our community members use. And Jay, I think you could probably elaborate even better on this than I can.
Yeah, so as I mentioned during the Lodestone interest check, we talked about it there. There is some significant delays to the community to try and carry on with some of the group buys that are already existing, and some of the group buys that have just run, and some of the group buys that are just about to run. The fact that, I mean, China always shuts down for Chinese New Year anyway. That's kind of like an expected thing in the hobby now. The vendors tend to work around that. They know that China's going to be shut for 2 to 3 weeks, and it's kind of a thing that we appreciate and build into plans and everything else. What the coronavirus has done in this particular instance is it's caused the factories to have to be shut down for longer, and that's basically due to China implementing a series of rules and regulations that mean that people can't go back to work because they have to be quarantined for X number of days before they change provinces, and all sorts of other things as well. So travel is heavily restricted in China right now. People can't get back to the areas where they need to be to work, and traditionally, whilst people might live in the areas where they work, when it comes to Chinese New Year, they all go back to their hometowns to spend it with their families. It's kind of like huge gatherings, and that's kind of the culture that they have. So now it's come time to go back to work. People can't go back to work. The factories can't open because people don't live near them. It's kind of really interesting, to be honest, to watch as an outsider and understand how this is going to play out, because there's a few things that might impact the community at large. The first thing is really easy to say. There's going to be a ton of projects and a ton of group buys that have delays. There's no getting around that. It's happening. They're already being impacted. And this will affect things that have gone into group buy last year that are currently in production. So things like Iron 165, you know, that was due to ship straight after Chinese New Year. That's now going to be delayed a little bit. May or may not hit its target March, and you know, a series of other group buys then as well. I'm not picking on anything in particular, just an example. There's also group buys such as my own JO2 that was run by Upas and Ilon KB and my keyboard.eu. That finished, the group buy was timed so that we'd have the group buy, and then as soon as the group buy finished, Chinese New Year would be over, and then the order would be able to go into the factories to be produced. That obviously now can't happen, and production is delayed for a period of time, and how long we don't know right now. And also, again, other projects which were due to run group buys straight after Chinese New Year and then go into production, you know, those are all delayed as well. Never mind all of the other small projects, prototyping and everything else that people have got going on as well. It's all kind of delayed. And this is anything that's being manufactured. It's not just keyboards, key sets as well. So I know that in the Hammer, so Hammer, I think it was they've got one person working in the factory at the minute because they happen to live in the same province as the factory. There was a bit of an update about that a couple of days ago, but the rest of the factory can't get in there to work at the minute because they're all from external provinces. So delays are the big thing that's going to happen. The factories aren't really operating. It could be another couple of weeks until they are. There's no real clarity on when resumption will take place for a lot of these businesses, and there is a risk that some of those businesses, because they don't have turnover to keep them going, may come into financial difficulties. That could be one of the impacts that we see. There's been a huge impact to China's economy based on this. It's cost them billions and billions of US dollars, and we'll just have to see what the fallout of that is. But it could mean some slightly challenging times, and certainly some extended timescales from a group buy perspective. So for this small community of ours, where we are reliant on that kind of waiting period of collating money to buy something in a group buy and then have it shipped later on, that is going to be impacted. So please do bear that in mind if you join any group buys, that you might see a small delay or a larger delay, depending on how long this goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth noting, just while we're on this topic, that it's not exactly the fault of the vendors or anything that the you know, the virus spread, obviously. So, you know, it's worth pointing out that I feel like people should not go so hard on vendors for the delays if they're specifically for this reason, at least. You know, a lot of people blame vendors when something goes wrong, and a lot of the times it's out of the vendor's hands, and I feel like this is one of those scenarios. And, you know, don't be mean to your vendors because of this. They didn't want this. This wasn't intentional. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wanted it. So
yeah, absolutely. I know the community is usually really good at accepting delays when people are visible about it. Many of the Discords I'm a part of have announced, put an announcement out saying, we don't know what the impact of this is going to be yet. Please bear in mind this is a thing. As soon as we can give you more information, we will do. So, please do bear with people. As Brian says, it's absolutely key that we allow the vendors time to work with their partners, their manufacturers, and all of those kinds of things to come up with a plan and to be able to articulate what those delays and challenges are. Like any group buy, we're all used to delays. It happens. Most group buys end up with some sort of slippage or time delay or something. Brian, not to rub a sore wound, but you've got it now. The Southpaw, that was quite a long time for you to get hold of it. So it happens with even normal group buys anyway. This is just another setback that's going to happen. But the main thing is that we want people to be healthy. We don't want to put our factories at risk. We don't want to put those workers at risk. So the real key to this is all being strong enough to allow those manufacturers and companies and the Chinese people as a whole to come together and make sure that they're taking care of the collective health.
Yep, absolutely. People are more important than keyboards, it turns out.
100%.
And let's keep it that way. So yeah, that's just something we wanted to just have a brief discussion on, just kind of let you guys know what's up, because some people have no idea what this is or what's going on, or that it even could affect our community. And the reality is it can affect our community very, very largely based on the fact that we have so many products being manufactured in China. So
yeah.
Just keep that in mind, guys.
Yeah, and it will take the factories a little bit of time to catch up as well, because they're missing time and production time. So it is going to take a little bit of time to catch up.
Yeah, it's a nightmare for everyone, not just the consumers. All right, well, now on to some good topics, some good information. Our sponsors, Jay, they are fantastic, and we should talk all about them.
We absolutely should. Starting, go then.
I'm on it. Lay off. All right, starting with Novel Keys. They have numerous things going on as usual, including, but not limited to, Cam Wraith, which is that delicious set that's been in group buy this month. And it runs until the end of this month, so you only got about a week left to pick this up. Very inexpensive cat set. Nice price on that base kit. Really, really attractive look as well. And lots more going on, of course. GMK Darling still going on until the end of the month, I believe. Yep, the end of the month. So you can still pick up a GMK Darling, $120 base kit. Quite a bit of compatibility for that price as well. And if those aren't your things, we do still have, of course, the Boba Fett Star Wars officially licensed set. Now, it is a bit more expensive, but that's the price you pay for it being officially licensed by Disney. And it's a nice collection piece, as Jay can attest. So make sure to check that out. Of course, they have lots of other things going on, like we mentioned before. The JTK Classic FC group buy still going on with that ridiculously inexpensive supplementary Alphas kit. GMK Zuyin add-on kit still going on until the beginning of next month as well. And if you're looking to buy some things in stock, maybe some switches, stabilizers, lubes, wrist rests, he's got pretty much anything you can think of. You can use the promo code Clack, and that'll get you 5% off your order. So make sure to use that.
Absolutely. Moving over now to Kono.store. So a number of different things to call out here. Cat Oasis is still in group buy, but it ends soon. So please do go check that out. Please do join if you want to. It's very close to hitting MOQ from what I understand. One of the nicer cat sets that we've seen recently. Both Brian and I are a big fan of that one. And an absolute ton of different kits. I think we differ in terms of the modifiers that we like. I prefer the brown, Brian prefers blue. But you can pick you up. You pay your money and take your choice, right? So there's plenty of different options there.
You could even get them in blank for a cheaper price.
I was just going to say that you can even get a sillily low price for a blank set as well. As well as that, they do also have the standard GMK offering. So they have 3 different group buys going on at the minute for GMK sets. So you can buy GMK Copper, which ends soon. So please do check that out if you're interested in a copper-based set. As well as that, they've also got GMK Hero, which is kind of the Legend of Zelda-inspired set without using any IP, of course. And then also a GMK Spirit group buy, which is very much the GMK version of the SA Spirit that ran a couple of years back as well. So please do go check those out, and hopefully there'll be something that you like on their store.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, we have KBDfans, who has numerous projects going on right now, including the Bella that we talked about earlier. That's still an interest check, of course. Still waiting on more information from that. But if you can't wait, there's always more things going on too, including something that I've been meaning to check out very soon. Is some of these ABS double shot EnjoyPBT sets. So earlier they just had the Venice set, and now more recently they've been adding a lot more at the exact same price range. So only $69. Yep, pretty nice for that base kit pricing there, and you get a lot of compatibility for that price. So a lot more options here.
Yeah.
We can't wait any longer. I'm gonna pick one of these up right after the show. We're gonna find out how good these EnjoyPBT ABS double shots are, and hey, maybe you can find out with me. I'll definitely let you guys know how it goes. But very high hopes on that. Barring those, there's lots of other things as usual. KBDfans stocks a wide range of products, regardless of what kind of things you're looking for. Numpads, 40% boards, 60% boards, 75% boards, cases, switches, artisans. They have a B-stock market where you can find inexpensive things. Sometimes they get picked up pretty darn quick, though, so you got to make sure you're quick and fast on that. But yeah, lots and lots going on at KBDfans as usual.
Yeah, and moving over to our final sponsor today, the Key Company. So Jason and gang over there. A few things in group buy at the moment. So if you guys do like Infinikey Hive, today for me is the last day that you can join that. It finishes on the 21st, Friday, so that's tomorrow for you guys watching in the US. Please do go check that out. A revival of what was GMK Yellow Jacket, but now in Infinikey and Hive colorway. Really interesting set, but as I say, it does finish tomorrow. Other things that finish tomorrow as well is the Godspeed 75. So this is a board designed by Fropsy, who you might have seen in the Top Clack chat, and Blind Assassin as well, combined together, which has some interesting features such as a rear USB port. So it has a USB breakout board as well, and a really rather interesting logo design based on the anti-hero speedster Godspeed. So Godspeed 75% keyboard as well. In terms of key sets, other than Infinikey, there is also GMK Future Funk, which has about a week left on it. Ends on the 29th, so just over a week. So this lovely purple vaporwave kind of inspired set is definitely something you might want to check out. So it's well on the way to hitting MOQ. It's not too far away from that at the moment, and I think that this is going to do really rather well. I've already picked up a set of this because it's one of my favourite sets in group buy at the minute. So do check that out. Do take a look at the apparel. Do take a look at the desk mat. Lots of really interesting out too. Just while we're talking about the Key Company as well, they do have a giveaway on Instagram at the minute as well. Please do go check that out. They're partnering up with a number of different teams, including the Mechs on Decks guy who were watching earlier on. So if you're still there, guys, feel free to post the link to your Instas as well, where that's all being shared. So definitely go check out that giveaway.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are now moving over to our Q&A segment, as we usually do. We are just about to hit our limit of 2 hours, but obviously we're going to stay on a little bit longer for the Q&A. But this is like prototyping. We're prototyping the new Top Clack and how we should do things. So we're going a little bit over this week, but we actually still kept it fairly well. We kept it under 2 hours without the Q&A. We're working on it. But Q&A time starts now, so if you guys have questions, hopefully we have the answers that you seek. Make sure to use the @TopClack tag in the chat so we can see the questions a lot easier, and we'll answer a handful of questions before we head off for the night.
Yeah, go for it, guys. The first one comes from Scrubby Sean. He says, @TopClack, rock, paper, or scissors. Brian?
I'm more of a scissors kind of guy.
Interesting. I usually open with paper, but most people go with rock. So.
Yeah, I'll use scissors 100% of the time, so it's really easy to beat me.
Okay.
But that's what I'm known for. Absolutely.
Cool.
Madrid is asking, magnet-mounted Q&A. Of course you can ask questions about the mag mount. Obviously,
sure.
Jay and I are both here, so
feel
free. Straight Classy asking, the new speed is awesome. You guys are doing great. Not asking, sorry, but saying. I appreciate that, definitely. Yeah, we're working on it. We had a bit more news this week than we did last week, especially keyboards, which are usually the longer topics. We've had more today than probably ever on Top Clack, so I think all things considered, we still hit a reasonable time frame for today. We'll do Q&A for about 10, maybe 15 minutes, then we'll head out, so not too bad. Pluto asking, going back to the AKI-S having the symmetrical 65% bottom row, you mentioned that there were other boards that have done that before the Bauer popularized them. Could you tell us which of those were? I'm interested in checking those out.
Yeah, so there's one called the Wraith, which was 75%, but it had that same bottom row. That came out a little bit before the Bauer. There was a prototype. I'm not sure if the interest check thread was launched after the Bauer one was originally, but there was definitely a prototype well before the Bauer. I remember seeing it at a UK meetup. Must have been 2018, early 2018. I think it was March 2018 when I saw it. So definitely seen it before. Whether it was popularized or not, I think, as I said during the segment, the Bauer's absolutely the board that popularized it. Yep. But I think people have been playing around with it before that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, Bauer popularized them, no doubt. Yeah. PMS and Chicken asking, what are some plateless TKLs like the Jur 80? Ooh. Are there others like the Jur 80?
I don't think so. I think that's the only one as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware as well, I can't think of another plateless TKL, a plateless custom TKL.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head. The only one I would know of and the only one I own is the Jur J80. So or the AO6, depending on which revision you got, whether it was round 1 or round 2, it had a slightly different name, but it's the same board essentially.
Yeah, goes by many monikers. GVRBO is asking, what are our favorite switches currently? Favorite switches currently?
So I've probably got a few, depending on how you want to view it. So Linear's bang for buck, just Gateron Milky Top switches, because they're cheap, 15 cents a piece or whatever they are, dirt cheap. If I was going to go for something a little bit more expensive, then I would say any of the JWK stroke Durox switches are pretty much identical. They're all really super smooth. Alpacas were the last ones I used, so any of those kind of switches would be really great as well. Basically, you're picking on spring variation at that point, and color. So if you are influenced by color, tactiles, I would probably go for Zelio's V2.
Yeah, I can feel that. Overall favorite switch, I don't think I really have one right now. For tactiles, Zeal V2 definitely at the top of my list. I agree with linears right now. I'd say JWK / Durox switches really are kind of what you're probably seeking for most people out there right now. They are very similar to each other. The alpacas, the mauves, the marshmallows. They're all pretty darn identical, but they're all pretty good as well. In terms of sound, though, I think I actually prefer something like Novel Keys Creams. I know they're not everyone's favorite switches. They could be a little smoother. The stock spring is awful, but if you lube them right and you swap out that spring, I do think that the sound and the feel is a big payoff. I really like Creams for that reason alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I got right now.
Cool, excellent. Someone did mention we haven't talked about clickies. I actually kind of like the new Phoenix stems. I think they're quite good as clickies, so I would probably pick those or a click bar based switch. But I'm not a huge fan overall, and I very rarely build clicky boards.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I haven't tried the new Phoenix stems. I used to use the Aristotle hybrids. They're fine. I'm still not a big fan of the click jacket, but Aristotle does it a little bit better. Presumably Phoenix does as well. With that said, click bar is where my heart lies. When it comes to clicky switches, I much prefer the Kale click bar implementation. So, Kale box whites, Kale box pale blues, Kale box pinks, I think they are, Kale jades, and Kale navies. I think those are all pretty awesome. I like the idea of the click bar because it's really primitive. It's really easy and it's really primitive, but at the same time you can adjust the thickness to really change both the sound and the feel of the entire keyboard. So I like that functionality a lot, and they're very inexpensive as well. Like all of them are well under 40 cents a switch basically. So
yeah,
I love that. I use box pinks are the only clicky I currently have in a board for clicky switches. So yeah,
I've still never used them. Mike sent me a bag of box pinks a while back, and I've still never used them.
They're good.
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah, I should really try and they're in a little tub just to the side here. I should really try those out. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, Madrid asking, I wasn't there when you first talked about the magnets. Are you trying multiple kinds of magnets?
We've settled on the type of magnet we're going to use. I think we tried 27 different types of magnet, or we certainly considered
27
types.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't think we actually bought all of the different types, because there was some that we just discounted based on size and shape and things like that as well. But we went through a ton of different iterations, from having round neodymium magnets, so just the standard round ones like what I use on the bottom of the JR1 pen rails, to bar magnets with north and south, so if there's your bar north and south on one end and the other end, and there was different variations of that. We also looked at having two small square ones where you'd have a north and a south in the base, and then alternate them on the top instead of having the long bars. We looked at tons of different variations of that and how you might use it to align and to keep it from moving side to side and front to back and just pushing straight up. And then we finally settled on the ones we're using. So yeah, we went through a ton of different magnet options. Yeah.
All right, there you go. Iwane asking, what do you think of FR4 plates, since that is what the hiney TKL will most likely have? Okay, so just for the record, it does sound like, when I talked to him at least, he was also going to include brass and potentially more. FR4 just seems to be kind of what he wants to default to for this board, for, I assuming, the default plate.
Sure.
I don't have a ton of experience with FR4 plates, but the ones that I have tried, I have liked. I think in terms of feel, it's not totally unlike something like carbon fiber. I think it's relatively stiff. It's relatively reflective in terms of how it handles acoustics.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's about as far as I've gotten with it. I still need more testing on it.
Yeah, I've only got one board with FR4, and it's I'd say it's yeah, so I like it because it's not a metal plate, and I've really gone off metal plates. 2019 was the year I changed pretty much
you
entirely
and me both, brother.
to other materials. It's a huge change for me. I know we've gone slightly different. You're probably more towards the polycarbonate type plate and POM type plate. I'm probably more to the carbon fiber type plate.
Sure.
FR4 for me is kind of in the middle, but more skewed towards the CF side. I do really like it. I think it's quite an interesting material. It's cheap. I think it's absolutely fine, but as Brian says, it's a little bit more firmer than if you wanted something like a POM or a polycarbonate one. It's probably not quite as stiff as CF, but it does have a very different acoustic property.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, no. Madrid already calling us out on the clicky switches. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I saw that one earlier on. Yeah.
Buy Me Noodles forgets to tag us, but he asks, how would you lube switches without desoldering them from the PCB? It's situational. So let's say, do you have another means to open up the switches while they're in the board? I.e., is it a PCB mount board? Is there a plate there to block you from being able to open up the switches? Does the plate allow for switch top removal? Some of them do. It's a lot less common these days than it was, 3, 4, or 5 years ago. At the end of the day, you got to be able to open the switches. If you can't open the switches, you can't lube them. There are some really, I'm going to say, bad guides on the internet that I've seen where people try to lube switches without taking them apart by just taking a straw and putting some lube on it and whatever, and pushing down the switch. Terrible ideas, in my opinion. If you can't take the switches apart to lube them, don't lube them. There's no getting around that. I don't know how else to answer the question.
I would completely agree. If you want some help and advice with your particular board, take a picture, post it in our Discord server, show us an image of the plate up close to the switches. We'll tell you whether you can remove the switch tops really easily. A load of people in there will be able to answer that one for you.
Yep.
If you can't, it may mean desoldering.
Yeah, and even if you don't know how to desolder or you're not comfortable doing it, maybe you don't have the equipment, there are about infinite amount of people in the community that will do that work for you. Some of them might charge you a few bucks, but you'll have the work done for you, and you don't have to worry about buying equipment or doing it yourself or having to learn how to do it. So
yeah,
that could be an option as well. Melodit asking, will either of you be building a personal board with the upcoming Zeal clickies then? That's the plan. I plan to get some as soon as they launch.
Yeah, I want to try them because I like to try all the new switches. So yeah, we'll both likely try them. In what board, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I have to be whatever I've got to hand at the time.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I certainly will be trying them out. I'm a big fan of all the Zeal switches personally. That's just me. My honest opinion. We're not even sponsored by Zeal anymore. but still, my honest thoughts, I still love the Zeal switches, and I will absolutely be getting some of the clickies when they come in.
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
Cryptoid doesn't tag us, but he says Mech Madness prizes looking spicy. Don't know if you guys talked about Mech Madness yet. Actually, we totally forgot to include it in the doc this week.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it, but it does launch in a couple of weeks. You can fill out your brackets now. I agree, the prices do look really spicy. Yeah, there's some great looking prizes in there. Yeah.
Yeah, once the event actually starts, we'll talk about it a little bit. Unfortunately, we won't be covering it the same way we did last year. I believe this year it's going to be covered by one of Dixie Mech's partners, which is Mechs on Deck. Great people. So make sure
I'll definitely be watching.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching that as well. It sounds like they're going to be doing a dedicated stream on Fridays, I think, where they bring on Dixie and they just talk about the event and how it's going. So it's going to be
nice.
It should be pretty cool, pretty casual, pretty in depth. So look forward to that if that's something you're after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. PMSing Chicken says, well, we just kind of touched on that, actually. Janky Render... Yeah, we just touched on that. So, Janky Render asking, was there any macro pads in the news today? I don't think so.
No, we didn't
talk about any. Yeah.
Haven't seen any...
I feel like he's asked that a couple times now, and I feel like there's an inside joke or something I'm completely missing here.
Maybe. I was just refreshing Keycap to have a look, see if we missed anything. Interestingly, there is something that we did miss. Well, we didn't miss it because I think it's just gone live while we were on stream. But there's an interest check going up for JTK John Wick, which is by the by. Anyway.
If interest check is good enough, we will check it out next week on the show. If it's not, I will probably pretend it doesn't exist.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think that's the right play here. All right, Madrid asking, have you seen if you can get in on that Bloomberg influencer money? I have no idea what you're talking about, but I doubt it.
I'm going to Google it and see what that is, because I have no idea. Bloomberg is not big here. Mike Bloomberg is paying people to send their friends texts about him.
Paying people to send...
Yeah, Mike Bloomberg will pay you $150 to say nice things about him.
Okay.
Yeah, $150 popped to Instagram influencers willing to shill for his campaign. There we go.
I'll take a pass on that. It has nothing to do with keyboards, so I see no reason to be a part of it, for Top Clack at least.
Yep. Pass. It's American politics. It doesn't affect me at the minute directly. Probably will do indirectly, but yeah, not one for me to comment on.
Oh man. All right. Well, that looks like the end of our Q&A here. So I think that's a good time to wrap it up. We went just a little overboard by about 15 minutes, but hey,
that's all right.
That's not bad. We're still working on this. We're trying to get down to that hard limit of 2 hours. So, you know,
we're doing better.
We're doing better. We're doing better. We're getting there, guys. But yeah, since that seems to conclude our Q&A, make sure you check below the stream. You'll find a couple links to our official Discord server, which you can come hang out with us, talk about keyboards or you know, the Apollo missions, or you know, cheesecake, or you know, whatever. There's something for everyone there. We have lots of channels and lots of friendly people. Just come hang out. Yeah. It's a good time. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where all the VODs and other things are posted as well. So make sure to check that out. Upcoming streams, we do have several. So tomorrow is going to be the first official episode of Behind the Keyboard, barring any medical emergencies. Fingers crossed, guys. So, yep, should be tomorrow, Behind the Keyboard, finally launching, 6 p.m. Pacific. So make sure to tune in for that. I'll have a fantastic guest with me. It should be a really good time. Have some good questions and topics for him. It'll be fantastic. So come check that out. And, of course, on Sunday, Jay, I believe you have a build stream.
Yes, I'll be unboxing my Jane CE live. I haven't taken it out of the box yet. I haven't even unsealed it. It's still sealed as it came through the post to me. So you'll get to see my reaction on the board as I unbox it live. And hopefully it's got everything I ordered in the box and everything else. And we should be able to check out both different weight types, and I'll do a build of that as well. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Awesome. Good stuff. I actually have some build streams upcoming for me as well. So now I have all the parts to my couch server. I can build that. I have switches currently being lubed by someone for my Southpaw full size. So I will be building that soon as well. And I have a couple other commissions on the way. So you'll actually see some build streams from me in the near future too, once some more things start to arrive. So looking forward to that.
Nice.
I'm excited to start streaming more, both with build streams and behind the keyboard. Very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to see both as well. Yeah, good.
Anyways, thank all of you so much for watching. We very, very, very much appreciate it. Also, shout out to Madrid, who just subbed on for 2 months. So much thanks for that. Appreciate that. And yeah, we will catch you guys next time. Tune in tomorrow, guys, behind the keyboard, 6 p.m. Pacific. I think you're not going to want to miss it, because I know a lot of you are going to be appreciative of who the guest is.
I think it's going to be a really good stream.
It's gonna be a good one. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day, morning, night, wherever it is for you. Know that we love you.
See you later, guys.